Namaste, everyone. Nice to be with you. It's my pleasure. So, my name is Ajit Kumar, and I'm a professor here. My area of specialization is operations management. That's one of the disciplines of management. You are aware of that. And so, normally, I teach courses in the subject of operations management, production planning and control, simulation, operations simulation, quality management, etc. Parallelly, I also have an interest in the Indian knowledge system. The Indian knowledge system, as defined by the Government of India, the Government of India has a few years back opened a discipline, education, in the Ministry of Education called the Indian knowledge system. And it refers to the entire set of knowledge that developed in India, because it was realized that predominantly our current education system in the country is biased by the Western knowledge, the knowledge which developed predominantly in the West. West includes the Europe and the US, European countries, the US, which is nothing wrong. We're not unhappy with that. We are very happy with the knowledge that we got from the West because we have benefited a lot from it. At the same time, knowledge that developed in India is very unique, and it has been with us for thousands of years until the British came, and the British systematically removed our education system and replaced with theirs, because that was one of their strategies to, get control over the country. They wanted to get political control over our country, and one of the tools was to remove the education system and replace it with their education system, which they did successfully. And that's why today we are speaking to each other in English, right, instead of our mother tongue, which is fine, nothing wrong with it. But we should not lose the valuable knowledge that developed in our own country, which our ancestors developed, right, and wrote in the form of so many different texts all over the country in so many different languages, etc. So the Government of India a few years back officially recognized the discipline called the Indian knowledge system and identified the prominent texts. And these texts are not only pertaining to one type of discipline, but all types of discipline, including humanities, engineering, science, medicine, arts, things like civil engineering, sculpture, all kinds of disciplines. And today, in the country, some of you might be aware that many of our top institutions, like the IITs, the top universities like JNU, for example, many of the IIMs, and an institution like XLRI, academics in all these institutions are specializing. Many people are specializing. Many centers of IKS, Indian knowledge systems, have opened up, and they're conducting conferences. They're conducting the developing subjects, writing textbooks. Already the first textbook on IKS has been released. So gradually this knowledge will come out, and we'll see how we can integrate this with what we already know from the education system that we have grown up with, and how it can benefit all of us. Okay, that is the intention. So I am one of the faculty members in XLRI who is interested in this, and my research now, apart from what I did during my PhD and what I have done in the past, I'm also now doing research in this area, right? And so my involvement in this training program is part of that thing. So I've written some cases, and two of those cases are in front of you. And so we will see how to analyze them through the lens of what is described in the Indian knowledge system. That is the intention. So this is the title for us, is enhancing self-awareness for improved decision making. So in the Indian knowledge system, there's a particular perspective on the nature of the self and the importance of self-awareness. As Professor also said in the morning, when we are better aware of our own self, then we can make better decisions. Our decisions are better informed. We'll have more clarity on what we are doing, etc. So we will try to understand what is meant by the self and what comes in the way, what obstructs us in becoming self-aware. What is the obstacle to it? So by knowing all this, then we can probably chalk out a path by which we can improve our own self-awareness. That's the intention. So let me begin with what we have done. So you have read the story of Vishwamitra and Vasishta. I hope you enjoyed reading those stories. I believe that we like stories. So I like to write stories. I like to narrate stories. So they are a bit long. I hope that you didn't feel bored while reading them. So let's begin with this question. what beneficial lessons can modern day professionals take from this narrative? Okay, I've given you 2 long narratives. I would like to hear your thoughts, whatever thoughts come to your mind. Okay, there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. You can say whatever comes to your mind. Yes, sir.
Actually, the story of the Vishwamitra and Vasishtha, the desire for the Kamdhenu. In this story, there are several beneficial lessons for the modern day of professional life. In my view and my understanding, first is to handle the challenge more effectively and create more harmonious work environment. Second, value of negotiation and finding common ground. Maintaining integrity in professional life. Adverse situation can be lead to development. Balance in authority and respect within organization. And dialogue is more powerful than aggregation and beneficial for our system. I try to.
Nice. So your name is Mr. Manoj. Okay. So Manoj ji has made a slide of concise points like sutras, right? Nice. Thank you very much. I hope you heard what he said. You can build on that. Please give your views too. Please raise your hand. I'll give you the mic. You can speak into the mic. Yeah.
So, sir, actually, few of us were discussing this narration yesterday.
Good. Yeah.
And we discussed a thing that why Vashisht ji was so adamant to not to give Kamdhenu to Vishwamitra. Then after several discussions, several points, we came to a conclusion that he might have given the Kamdhenu, but the first thought that Vishwamitra had, why he want to have that, it's written here, that such a unique thing should be in the palace, should be to the king, not to an ascetic sage. So maybe due to that thought, they have not given that. So in professional values as well, what is our basic thought behind achieving anything? Is it somewhat on a negative tendency? Then we have to think about it. Similar like that.
Right. Can you speak a little bit more on that line in professional situation?
So in professional situations, like whatever we want to achieve or whatever we are trying to attain, what's our basic tendency behind what actions we are going to do? Is it about
motivation?
The underlying what's motivation. The basic motivation side? Is it like I only care about myself, nobody else? Or is it about carrying the team together, growing together, and all of us can perform better?
So okay, so you're taking the perspective that Vishwamitra was looking at it only for himself and not for,
yes, at that time,
and therefore Vasishtha was not willing to give it to him.
Yes.
Nice perspective. Yes, sir.
Sir, the first A part, the story that you sent to us, after reading that, the beneficial lessons that I got from that is that we should not have ego in ourselves. Like Vishwamitra had that ego in himself. Like, I am the king and the Kamdhenu should be with me. Why it is with a sage who just runs an ashram and teaches? This is so valuable a thing. It should be with me and not anyone else. And I am the king, so that a professional should not have. That is the value that I think should come to us.
So what should a professional think like? Different from the way Vishwamitra was thinking.
A professional should think like, if I have something in value, I should impart that education or that knowledge to my members so that they can also enrich from that and they can also grow. It should not be only with me, and I will only go and my team members will only work with me and not have that knowledge. Everyone should have that knowledge that I have. I should impart it to them so that in future they can also do the same thing. And this is how a society works or an organization work. If I keep it to myself, no one will grow.
In fact, if I use my knowledge for the benefit of others, Indirectly, I will also benefit.
I will also benefit.
So there is
from it.
mutual benefit
Mutual
rather
benefit.
than keeping it only with myself.
Yes.
Nice. Nice perspective. Yeah. Good. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Please pass it on. I'm asking you to speak into the mic because we are also recording the session. So your audio will also get recorded.
So the first lesson is the misuse of position that Vishwamitra did. Like Sir said, the misuse of position. He was in a dilemma that I am the king and I have right on each and everything.
He had the ego of
He had
being
the
a
ego.
king. Yeah.
And second lesson is we should fight for our values, like Kamdhenu did. He fought. He took the permission of his guru Vashisht, and then he fought that this is the line that we won't cross. You are a king, but we will fight.
So we should not just give in to somebody who forcefully suppresses, tries to
Exactly.
suppress us, but she fought for her rights. She was a brave person. Yeah.
So here, my perspective is like Kamdhanu is a valuable thing which belonged to Vasishtha. He did not, allowed that to be taken by Vishwamitra. So here, I think how Vishwamitra approached with his power and his willingness and his ego that this is what he need. Vasishtha channelized that ego to make him more powerful thing as a Brahmasri. So he used that Kamdhanu and his ego as a investment to make it broader version of Brahmasri.
So you're saying Vasishtha had a secret plan.
Yeah, like he channelized the thing because he end of the day he also agreed and he also called him Brahmasmi who what he didn't intend to tell in the beginning. So it was in the entire time as Vasishtha was not accepting his Brahmasmi, he was trying his best and best, so finally he Vasishtha able to channelize that ego to make a broader version of Brahmasmi.
Very good. I never thought of this perspective. That is, Vasishtha, being an enlightened sage, he is able to understand the weakness of this person, this king. This king is militarily powerful, but not intellectually developed like him. So he's able to see that weakness and he allows him to do whatever he's doing. He doesn't kill him. That's an interesting thing. Have you observed that? Although he has the power to sort of absorb all the weapons which are being used on him, which means he has enough power to kill him also. He could have killed him right in the beginning, but he doesn't kill him. That's a good point, sir. Which means he allows him to discover himself. That's what this session is about, becoming self-aware. He allows him to go through that path, whichever path he has gone through now, and discover himself, right? Good.
So when the first part just completed, at the time we get to know that Vishwamitra understand that the spiritual power is the superior than the military power. So he started, cultivating or exploring himself towards the, he was doing the tapasya and all, and first he get the Rajarshi. So at the time, he started doing self-development. And so what we professional need to do, that is, we need to understand ourselves. We need to explore and that like how we can improve more. So this is the first point. And the second point is the continuous learning, because the second point, when Vishwamitra get awarded with Rajarshi and Rishi Upadhi, but he did not get satisfied. He wanted to become more and more. So and he explore more. So like we professional need to upgrade ourselves with the fast changing world. We need to adapt the new skills or the new technologies, like what future is currently thinking. So the second point is the continuous learning, and the first point is the self-development.
Very nice points. The ability to persist and not give up. We see that in Vishwamitra, right? He's not giving up. He's going on trying despite the failures that come. He fails, but he again picks himself up and goes forward. Good. You can see how one simple story is giving so many different angles anything further? I'll get into some theory from the Indian knowledge system. But before I do that, I wanted to hear your thoughts, because you're all people who in the world of practice. You see, we are in the world of theory. So we learn from you.
Good afternoon. Most of the points are said that whatever, but I just want to add one more point, that when Vishwamitra came there, he had a huge army and he has all the fighters, etc., everything. But when he saw that Kamdenu he just gave the food to all his fighters. But even after that, he was offering in exchange of Kamdenu extra things to the to Vashishta. So, but for me, my learning is like whatever strong points you have, you focus on that instead of going for like he was not even appreciating what he has, and he was in a greed of getting more in exchange of even what we have. So we have to first appreciate what we have, what is our strength.
You're
Then
saying
we have to go
Vishwamitra
to
was not appreciating what he himself had.
because he was in ready to exchange. Matlab, he was saying, I will give you anything you want in exchange of that. But instead, he did not recognize that already what he have, that is also a valuable thing.
Right. Right. So he was doing a business out of greed.
Yes.
He was driven by greed for something much more
Yes.
than what he had.
Yes.
Very good point. I think we will come back to this point again as we go through this. Wonderful. Please sit down, sir.
From the two part, what I have seen, learned from this two part, as the people says that Vasishtha has a plan to make Vishwamitra, Vasishtha has a plan to make Vishwamitra as a Maharshi or Brahmarshi. So what Vishwamitra understand that he accept the failure first. He overcome his ego. He learn from his mistake. Learn from his mistake, understand the power of the spiritualness, and finally take a proper mentor in a situation when we found a situation where the Basuki Nagas came into the picture. And he told him there is a sequence over there that he first of all he goes to God, then he goes to Indra, goes to Vishnu, and finally goes to Basuki Naga. Then Basuki Naga told him that goes to Vasishtha. He is the proper mentor. So this is a plan of Vasishtha to make Vishwamitra spiritually so powerful that he can understand the military power is not the thing, spiritual power is the best, spiritual power is the best thing over the military power.
Right.
So
Similar to what your point, right? He wants to educate him by making him go through that practice. If you simply tell in theory, it may not be understood. But when you actually go through it, practical approach, put him through that thing. Good, nice. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you have anything. Otherwise, I'll keep going forward. And as we go forward too, I want you to bring your points. Yeah.
In the both the part, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
in
sure.
In both the part, you have specifically mentioned in some places that he traveled to south, he traveled to Pushkar, he traveled to north, he traveled to eastern part of India. Why are these locations important in the story?
Well, they are as they are from the original source, the Ramayana. I took it from the Ramayana, and it's described like that. Well, I think that moving from one place to another place is only to overcome the distractions that were present there and the memories of those distractions. Because if he continued to remain there in the place where he had those failures, then those thoughts would come back to him. But if you go to a new place, those old thoughts, the disturbing thoughts will go away. You can start fresh. So this is how I think it is.
Okay.
In fact, if I recollect my own life, I have stayed, actually I was born in the south, but I have stayed all my life in all parts of India. Now I am in Eastern India. I've been here for 10 years. I'm 55 now, so I'm 10 years here. So I can see that, you know, whenever I go to a new place, there's freshness. I mean, I begin a new life. So whatever mistakes I've done in the past, I can sort of put them behind me and say that I won't think about them anymore. It's easy because it's a new place, new people, everything is new. That must be the reason why he's moving.
Same with me, sir. I've also traveled.
Okay. Nice. Good. Thank you all. We got a good, really overview of different perspectives possible here. If we had more time, we can do a lot more. Now, I want you to see, I'm just tracing the storyline of part A of the case. I'll do part B later. So in the beginning, Vishwamitra begins in a peaceful way. The story begins with a happy, environment where he meets the sage Vasishta, and there's a very loving exchange between them, right? Everything is good. But then suddenly Kamadhenu enters the scene, and the moment he sees her performing that miracle of producing food and feeding everybody, suddenly everything is different. He's getting disturbed. Now you can see clearly what the cause of that disturbance is. From that point onwards, his life changes. He develops a desire that I should own this thing. That desire is what changes. Until that point of time, everything was all right. There was no disturbance. He was not trying to attack Vasishta. He was not angry with anyone. Everything was all right. But from this point onwards, when the desire enters his head, that I should have that particular thing. Until then, he didn't even know that such a thing existed. The moment he knows and sees what it is capable of, that desire develops in him. And then he becomes angry when the sage refuses his request. And then he performs an act which he should not do as a king. He tries to forcefully take away that object, which he should not do. As a king, he is not supposed to do. And on top of that, it happens to be that particular object is not some physical object, but it's a cow. And in our culture, the cow is considered to be something that's an object of worship, right? So you treat it with respect. In fact, in our culture, everything is to be treated with respect only, particularly the cow, more than anything else. But he misbehaves with the cow, completely misbehaves with it. Then he fights desperately. He's forced into a battle because Kamadhenu is more powerful than him. And then he's pushed into humiliation and becomes vengeful. He develops a sense of revenge. I should now take revenge on this sage, right? Which is very unnatural for a king. A king doesn't think like that normally. And then out of that sense of vengeance, he is driven to do tapasya on Shiva to get some weapons. He wants to now show Vasishta that, look, you are nobody. You just have one cow who can produce some soldiers, but I can do much more than you. So I will show you who I am. मैं दिखाऊंगा कि मैं कौन हूँ. That kind of thinking comes to him. So he does a big tapasya and everything. We give him credit for doing that. But what is the intention? The intention is to go and harm somebody. So eventually he succeeds in that tapasya. He gets those weapons. And then he comes and attacks the sage and his ashram in a completely brutal manner. And that too, you can see, is not the way that any culture will appreciate. Forget about our own culture. No announcement. It's like suddenly somebody comes and attacks you. Like sometimes we hear about such attacks, right, in this world. So there's no warning, there's no negotiation, there's no talk, just attack. And this is a peaceful place. It's not just it's not another king. He's a sage. He's attacking that person. And again, he is defeated. So here you can see the contrast between the two parties. Vasishta on one side, who absorbs everything quietly, peacefully. And Vishwamitra on the other side, who is extremely angry, very vengeful, wanting to somehow take revenge and prove his ego, establish his ego, and the conflict and contrast between these two parties. This is an ideal situation to understand what is meant by our real self. That's why I chose this case. So he's humiliated, he's defeated, and then he decides that, okay, now I should become a Brahma Rishi. Here too, I want you to appreciate the way in which his mind is changing its desire. Initial desire, when he began, is just to visit the sage. He just wants to, he's touring the whole country, and he happens to go to this particular sage, and he just wants to respect him and go after some time. That's all. That changes to a desire for that cow. Okay, after some time, there's a different desire. Then that changes to a desire to take revenge on Vasishta, to kill him, to destroy his ashram and to eliminate him. Okay, that's the third desire. And then that again changes to a desire to become a Brahma Rishi, fourth desire. You can see how his desire, his want is changing. It's not stable. There's an example of unstable, right? From one desire, he jumps to another one. When he realizes the first one is not fulfilled, he goes to the second one, and then the third one, and then a fourth one. He is continuously changing. So this shows a very different mentality. Whereas in Vasishtha, you don't see that. Throughout the story, from beginning to end, he is what he is. He remains like that, right? It's a very good context for understanding self-awareness, the nature of the self. Who is more peaceful and whom do we want to be like? Who should be our ideal, and what kind of a mentality would be more suitable for better decision making in life? Okay, so we'll go forward as we discuss that. Now, I want you to look at this. I've made two cycles here. The first is this cycle. Begins with kama. Kama in Sanskrit means desire. So I'll be using Sanskrit words and Sanskrit shlokas, but I will explain the meaning in English to you. Now, kama means desire. Now, this leads to action. When there is a desire for something, then we perform the action to get that thing or to achieve that thing, right? So you see that in the entire episode, so many times desire comes and then there is a action performed to achieve that thing, to fulfill that desire. Now, in the case of this particular story, Vishwamitra's story, often we find him failing to do what he is trying to do. For example, he asks for Kamadhenu to Vasishtha. That's the first action. He desires to have Kamadhenu. That's desire, kama. The action he performs is to go to sage Vasishtha and ask him, please give me that cow and I will give you so much money, so much wealth in return, right? He does a business transaction. That's a business transaction. I will give you money, please give me that thing. So first round he fails. Then he increases the offer, offers more. Again he fails. Third time he increases the offer. Again he fails. 3 times he offers to Vasishtha, but he is very adamant. He's very, I would say, fixed, firm. He's very firm. He says, no, whatever you say, I'm not going to give you. So after failing the 3rd time, he realizes that he cannot pursue that desire anymore. So failure, 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 and eventually anger. Anger develops. When you want to get something, but you're not able to get it, whatever you do, anger. Now, anger leads to modification of that desire. You have to now manage that desire. Either you try to get what you can. If you cannot get, then change the desire to something that you can get, right? So he thinks, now that I am a king, I can do whatever I like. So he tries to forcefully drag, action, fails. The cow generates an army, which destroys his army. His sons are killed. 100 sons are killed in the process. Again a failure and further anger. One more cycle. Now a new desire, I'll take revenge on Vasishtha. So he performs tapasya, gets some weapons, comes back, action, to go and attack the ashram, goes and attacks him. Again failure. Right? You can see that he's going through these cycles of desire, action, failure, and anger. Desire, action, failure, and anger. How desire, essentially, when it is obstructed, this is an important lesson in the Indian knowledge system, which comes again and again, that kama, desire, and krodha. Krodha means anger. Desire and anger, they're actually 2 forms of the same thing. When desire is fulfilled, it leads to something. When it is obstructed, it leads to anger. Okay. Now, when desire is fulfilled, what can happen? That's another cycle, and we see that at least once in the story of Vishwamitra in part A particularly. He has a desire to take vengeance on Vasishtha. The first thing he does is to do tapasya on Shiva, and he succeeds. Shiva appears before him. What do you want? I want to get all the military power. Give me the best weapons that you can, so that I can. He doesn't tell him, I want to go and kill Vasishtha, but he just says, give me the best weapons you can, and so on. And Shiva says, fine, you can have. So he gets all that. And what happens? Is he now happy after getting that? No. He becomes dambha. Dambha means vanity or arrogance, conceit. And now he thinks, instead of saying, okay, I've got all this, now I've become more powerful than what I was, let me leave Vasishtha, let him have his cow. No, he doesn't think like that. Like Madam also pointed out, he wants that also. So he's using now this power He thinks Vasishta is now dead because I have got all the weapons in the world. I've got the best weapons. Nobody can do anything to me. So essentially his success, instead of leading to contentment, instead of leading to happiness that he has succeeded, it leads to this. It leads to vanity. So in this cycle, you see kama leading to dambha and fueling that kama. With that, now he's got a desire, I'm going to kill Vasishta. He goes back and tries to kill him, right? So kama, beginning with kama, desire, it can lead to two undesirable outcomes. Krodha on one side and dambha on the other side. And both feed that kama in a negative manner. Okay, so this is one very important perspective, and the Gita, I'll be giving you shlokas from the Gita. Desire is at the center of these two, and we can reflect on this. You see, as modern day workers and professionals, we also sometimes go through these cycles in our life. We may not share this with others, but to ourselves we know that sometimes we get caught in these cycles. We have a desire for something, and then we work hard to get that thing. And sometimes we succeed, sometimes we fail. When we fail, sometimes we become very angry. We become upset with either ourselves or with somebody else. We may blame someone that you are responsible for my failure. When we are successful, then we sometimes become proud. We become, okay, now let me see who will now challenge me, who will do this, right? We see this happening. And so we should be very conscious about these cycles in our life. Before I go forward, I would like to hear from you what your thoughts are on whatever I have said so far. If anybody has any thoughts, please share with me. Yes, sir.
Sir, actually, here Vishwamitra asking Vasishta, instead of that, he could have asked directly to Kamdenu. Means what I'm saying. In every our Puranas, most of the wars start from woman. Means the desire or whatever it is starts from a woman. Like in case of Ramayana, Mahabharata, Sita, Draupadi. Similarly, it happens here with Kamadenu. So before starting war in the ancient kingdom, they will do four aspects, sir. That is Sama, Veda, Dana, Danda. Here he has not followed that first thing. He has not approached who is going to create the problem. Kamadenu is the main thing, but he has not respected her feeling. He without her permission, he want to take her. So that is the main problem, I guess. Mainly I'm trying to say is he failed with the negotiation. That is what I understand.
Nice. He goes against the desire of that object which he wants to have. Right.
So this cycle, will it not stop us from achieving more? Or I mean, when there is no desire, or anything cannot be achieved. Where there is no desire, where there is no urge to achieve.
Very good point. So his question is, he's asking me, are you saying that if we are free from, should we be free from desire? We should not have any more desire, because I'm saying that desire leads to anger or it leads to vanity. So if we become free from desire, then nothing will be achieved in life. There will be no activity in life. It's a very good question. I'll come back to that. We'll ask the question whether, is this the only way that cycles can happen? Can karma only lead to krodha and dambha, or can it lead to something else? Is there some other type of karma that we can have? Right? Is there a way to have karma which is not destructive like this? This is destructive nature of karma. Is there a constructive nature also? We will come to that point. Good question.
Just answer to the question Suthan asked, that yes, if we refer to the last part of the story, that there is another cycle we can see from the karma, because last part that there was a new desire that to have like Brahmarisi.
and when he achieved, he didn't make himself like arrogant or vanity. After that, he become friends of Basist. So
At the end,
at the end. So this is like third cycle of karma. Then you did something, and when you success, but you didn't become vanity, you become a friends of someone who has the same value.
Nice, nice. So there's a happy ending to the story. And what is the turning point we want to highlight? We'll come to that. I want you to keep that question in mind. Before we conclude, we'll ask this question. What was the turning point which changed the direction of the story? It's all going downwards, but suddenly it got resolved and the ending was happy. You see, in these two cases I have given you, part A of the case starts in a happy way. There's a happy beginning, but a sad ending, right? But part B, you will see, has a sad beginning, but a happy ending. Part B ends happily, right? So we'll ask what happened by which the happy ending came. Okay, now we will go into a little bit more of theory around karma. Okay, the Gita, actually, the Bhagavad Gita is a book which is one of the important texts of the Indian knowledge system, and it has several different theories on, you can say, in the language of modern knowledge systems, you can say psychology or sociology, humanities. So a lot of humanity related knowledge is present in the Gita. And we will talk about now a particular set of theoretical points connected to karma, desire. Now, the Gita talks about broadly two types of karma. Alaukika karma, sublime. I've translated it as sublime. And laukika karma. Laukika means mundane. Alaukika, laukika. What is meant by alaukika karma? Alaukika karma is calm for what is known as mukti. In the Gita, there is a word called mukti. Okay, so we will not go into what really mukti means. It's a spiritual word and it has its own meaning. So that's outside the scope of this particular thing. We will just mention it. It's alaukika. And even higher than mukti, there's something called prema. Prema means pure love. Okay, so that's what the Gita advocates, pure love. So those two things are alaukika karma. Laukika karma is calm or desire for mundane things, normal things that we are used to. That's what I mean by mundane. I'm not saying there's something wrong with them. Like wealth. For example, we want to earn more money, or at least we want to earn some money to live happily, right? If not more money. So that's artha. Then all of us also want some amount of recognition in society. We want people to appreciate us, right? Nothing wrong with that. We want people to say that, okay, you have done good work. We are happy with your work, right? Nobody wants to be told that you're always bad, your work is no good, you're useless. None of us want that, right? So that's perfectly all right. It's called khyati. And the third is aspadam, position. Okay, some of us also want to have a position. I want to become the Prime Minister of India. I want to become the director of the institute. I want to become the CEO of my organization. A position in society with which I can do something, right? That's also not wrong. It's not wrong to desire for a position. So karma by itself is not right or wrong. Now, laukika karma can be pursued in two ways. And that is what makes it right or wrong. That's where the right or wrong comes into it. By itself, karma is not right or wrong. It is just desire. It has a neutral nature to it. But how we pursue that karma, the Gita says, is what makes it right or wrong. So it can be pursued in two ways. One is dharma sangata. Dharma sangata means in accordance with dharma, that which is aligned to dharma. Okay, I'll come in a moment to what is meant by dharma. So dharma sangata, that way of pursuing karma is good, the Gita says. But dharma viruddha. Viruddha means that which opposes. Sangata means that which goes with, along with. Dharma viruddha karma or dharma viruddha prakriya, the process for satisfying the karma, is wrong. So what is meant by dharma? What does this word dharma actually mean? Now, this is a word that all of us who are born in India are used to, right? Right from our childhood, we have heard this word. What does it actually mean? Now, this is a shloka in the This is in the Mahabharata. From the Mahabharata, I have taken this, and this gives a definition of that word called dharma. It says, Dharanat dharmam ityahuhu, dharmo dharayate prajaha, yat syat dharana sanyuktam sa dharma iti katyate, or dharma iti nishchayaha. What does it mean? It says that the word dharma comes from the word dharana. In Sanskrit, there is a dhatu called dhr. Dharanam means sustenance, or it means bearing, sustaining. Dharma sustains the population. When there is practice of dharma, it gives the property of sustaining something for a long time. In a stable, it gives stability, sustenance. That which is endowed with the property of sustenance is dharma. That's how it's defined. That's what this shloka says. Anything which is endowed with the property of sustenance is dharma, which is present for a long time in that thing, or present permanently in that thing. Okay, now I'll give you some examples from the way in which we use this word in our society. I'll give you 3 examples. Now, one is in the sense of morality. For example, we say being honest, satya bolna, that is dharma, right? And stealing is adharma. Say if we steal something from somebody, or kill somebody, or telling lies, cheating, that is adharma. This is one sense in which we use the word dharma versus adharma. The second sense in which we use is like this: inherence, the property of, that is, its inherent property of something. For example, we say that sweetness is the dharma of sugar, or hotness is the dharma of fire. Somebody puts their hand in the fire and then they come and complain that my hand got burnt. Then you will say, अरे वो तो आग का धर्म ही वही है, जलाना है, वो तो जलेगा ही, उसमें क्या आश्चर्य की बात क्या है उसमें? It's inherent that fire will burn. That is dharma, inherent property. And a third sense in which we use dharma is in the sense of dutifulness. The dharma of a father is to protect the child. There's no debate in that. A father or a mother of a child, their duty is to protect the child. If you find a father who is killing their child or doing something very unreasonable with the child, you will say, what is this guy? Is he a father or what? Is he some kind of a demon? Unacceptable. Because a father's duty is not a stranger. Father's duty is to protect his child. So duty. Similarly, a teacher's duty is to teach. A businessman's duty is to do business. Everybody has a duty. So in that sense also, dharma is used in our society, that word, correct? So which means the word dharma doesn't have one English word corresponding to it. I've shown you 3 different senses in which it is used. It's not a word which has one single English word. Like this, there are many words in our culture, in all our languages, not only in Sanskrit. In all, you take any Indian language, you will find words which cannot be translated to English. Because if you translate to English, for example, if I translate dharma as religion, does it make any sense? It doesn't. It doesn't capture. The word religion doesn't capture all that I have told you here, right? So the dharma word has to be understood properly in its own context, in that particular language, the way it is spoken in that language, by reading the texts of that language. Right? If you are, for example, from Odisha, then Odia text will tell you what they mean by those words. An Odia word, if you try to read it in English or in some other language, then you may not get the real meaning of that word. Right? And this applies to all our languages. So this is the meaning of dharma. And so we can actually understand by reading more and more contexts in which dharma is used, and then come back and see what is adharma. Through the lens, adharma is understood when you understand dharma, because adharma builds on dharma. It's the basis. So now here in the Gita, Arjuna asks a question. Okay, so I'm now building the theory of karma. Arjuna asks this question to Krishna. He says, Atha kena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anichanapi varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. He says, very often we observe somebody who commits some wrong thing, who does a wrong thing, even after knowing that it is wrong, what is it? What is that force? There is some force which makes that person do wrong, even when that person knows it is wrong. Right. So Arjuna asks this question to Krishna. In the Gita is a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. So he asks this question. And in the Vishwamitra case, if you go back, in the beginning, it is described that Vishwamitra is a very dharmic king. He knows what dharma means. He is trained. All the kings are trained. In those days, kings were trained in dharma. They should not do anything adharmic. But you can see him in the party of the case itself. He's dragging the cow. He's using weapons to attack a sage. He's engaging in adharma by some force, right? Something is making him do that. So Krishna replies, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhavaha mahashano mahapapma vidhi enamiha vairinam, he says. So I am citing this Sanskrit shlokas just so that we can appreciate the fine meanings even better, right? If I just merely say in English, that meaning may not come. So he says that there is something residing inside us, and that is a great enemy. So our greatest enemy is not outside us. Sometimes we think that person will attack me or that person will do some harm to me. But the greatest enemy which does the greatest harm to us is actually living inside us, and it's known by two names. One is Kama, the other is Krodha. Kama esha, Krodha esha. It's known as Kama and Krodha. Two names of the same thing. And he says it's Rajoguna Samudbhava. There's something called Rajoguna, Sattvaguna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna. So three gunas, there's a theory of three gunas also in the Gita, but I will not go into that for want of time. Later on, if time permits in our 2 sessions, I'll also explain what that means. But right now, it says, because of Rajoguna, this Kama and Krodha become more inside us. They become powerful. This enemy in the form of Kama and Krodha becomes very powerful. And how is it described? It is Mahashanaha. Mahashanaha means all devouring, that which eats. Ashanam means eating, that which eats us. It consumes us. Mahapapma means very wicked. Papma means very wicked. It's very wicked. Sitting inside us, but very wicked upon us. Vidyena miha vairinam. So you should know that this is your greatest enemy. And it's this enemy inside us which makes us do things that are wrong, even after knowing that it is wrong. Right? So in the second chapter of Gita, now that shloka which I took, these 2 shlokas in the previous slide were from the 3rd chapter. Now this is from the 2nd chapter. The antecedents and consequences of Kama are given. How does it start and what does it lead to? Okay, so I'm showing you this prakriya, this process. So it says, Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammohaha sammohat smriti vibhramaha smriti bhramshat buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati. So this is a multi-step process. It's described as a process. So I've put the 2 shlokas here. Now the first thing in the process is Vishaya Dhyana. That is contemplating on the object which gives me pleasure. Okay, now in the Vishwamitra story, you can see that there is Kamadhenu. That's the object of pleasure. I want Kamadhenu. And I want her so much that I'm willing to give anything for her. That much want, very strong desire. So that dhyan is happening. Usko dekha और उसने इतना सब किया और देखने में भी सुंदर है वो. I want her. That desire is now very strong in me. So dhyan, vishaya dhyan. Vishaya dhyan से क्या होता है? Vishaya dhyan leads to sanga. Sanga means attachment. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayate. So contemplating on the object of the senses leads to the desire to have it, which means it leads to first the attachment. Before desire comes, an attachment comes. This should be mine. This should be mine. Right? I'll give you a completely different example. Okay, now in XLRI, we have faculty housing. I stay in the campus along with so many others. And our houses, they have inbuilt garage. Now, different houses have different types of garage. But what happens is, to maintain a certain discipline in the institute, space is given for everybody's car. I can't arbitrarily park my car in any space that is vacant, like in the parking lot. It's like, this is your space, this is his space, this is his space, everything is well set, right? So now it so happens that for me, I have an i10, which was purchased about 13, 14 years back, I think 2010. It's an old model of an i10. And my neighbor means the person who parks his car next to mine, he had a sedan earlier. For several years since I came here, I had an i10, he had a sedan which was bigger than my car. Sedan is bigger than a hatchback. And I used to sometimes think maybe I should go for a sedan in the future. And recently, about a year back, he got rid of the sedan and he has bought a SUV. He has bought a Mahindra XUV 700. So now my car looks like a small mosquito in front of that car. It's looking like the whole garage is filled with only his car. My car doesn't have, I have to squeeze it into whatever gap he leaves for me. It feels like that when I come in. In fact, he felt guilty more than me feeling bad. He felt bad when he bought the car. He came to me and said, Ajit, please, you don't mind, no? I'll not eat your space. Don't worry. He tried to. I said, don't worry. Yeah, you park comfortably. Don't worry about it. But when I look at his car, suppose I develop a desire, right? I go and see that, okay, this is such a beautiful car. It's so modern. The latest version he's bought. It's got all the gadgets inside. My car is nothing. It's just an old model, right? Now, this is how, because I'm looking at it every day, I'm seeing it every day, the desire comes that I should also have a car like his car. So this is how the desire is born. And so Vishaya Dhyana, from Vishaya Dhyana comes to Sangha, and then that goes to Kama. Sangat Sanjayate Kama, and that Kama then leads to Krodha. Kamat Krodho Bijayate. From Kama comes anger, Krodha. What happens after that? And we will see this happening in the Vishwamitra story. That's why I chose these two shlokas. From Krodha comes Sammoha. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. Sammoha means delusion. The English word delusion is the closest translation of sammoha. What is meant by delusion? Delusion simply means mistaking the right thing for the wrong thing and the wrong thing for the right thing. What? Sammoha, English, Hindi and Sanskrit, similar words are used. So, what is right seems to be wrong. What is wrong seems to be the correct thing to do. That's the meaning of sammoha. Discrimination is lost, right? That is sammoha. Sammohat is smriti vibrama. Smriti vibrama means because of that confusion in the mind, one's understanding is completely confused. What one has been educated in, like in the case of Vishwamitra, or like in the case of anybody for that matter. We are all educated people. We have gone through so much upbringing. We have been through good schools, colleges. Our parents have told us good things. This is bad, that is, teachers have told us good and bad. But at this point, when sammoha overcomes us, all that is gone. Smriti vibramaha means that memory, smriti, bhram ho gaya uska. It's forgotten, it's lost. Smriti vibram ho jata hai. So confusion in the understanding, and that leads to buddhi nasha. Our intelligence is lost. Intelligence is that ability to discriminate. I should do this or I should do that. That ability to discriminate is destroyed. And pranashyati means falls. From that, he falls down. He falls into a state of existence which becomes hellish, which is suffering. So in this entire set of two stories, in both the stories, you see that happening to Vishwamitra. The moment that desire for Kamadhenu develops and he succumbs to it, he succumbs to the desire. I'll just come, so one more. One after the other, incident after incident, he's only going into a worse state of existence. He's suffering, 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 suffering. And finally, Fortunately, there's a happy ending. But until that point, he goes on suffering again and again, right? So Pranash.
Sir, actually, there is a very good example of all what we are learning here. There is a very famous poem of Ramdhari Shahindinkar. It is a meeting between Sri Krishna and Arjun. That वो महाभारत का युद्ध, maybe it may not be happen just because. So there is a line sentence, जमनास मनुष्य पर छाता है पहले विवेक मर जाता है. तो I think there may we can find much more correlation between this sammohan and then loss of intelligence, buddhi vinash, and then destruction.
Nice. Which is that? Kabir. Kabir ka dua.
There is a poem of Ramdhari Shahindinkar.
Rashmi?
Rashmi Rathi.
Yes, Rashmi Rathi. I've heard about it. Yeah.
Everything is there.
Nice.
Krishna is trying to convince Duryodhan that whatever you have, you just be with them, or if you want much more thing, you take everything, you just give them 5 villages and they will be happily live. But it, fortunately or unfortunately,
He's
it
not
had
convinced.
Yeah.
Right. He doesn't want to give. Right. Yeah. Okay. Now, building the theory further, says this is the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It says, Asha pasha shatair baddhaha kama krodha parayanaha ihante kama bhogartham anyayena artha sanchayan. Says that those, he's describing people who are overwhelmed by desire. Asha pasha shataihi means by, it compares desires to ropes. A desire binds us. Kama binds us because it restricts our freedom of thinking and it takes us in one direction. We want to pursue that one thing at the cost of everything else. We may give up our parents, we may give up our friends, we may give up our good values, everything. So it's binding us. So those who are bound by hundreds of ropes of desire, material desire, Asha pasha shatair baddhaha kama krodha parayanaha. Such people are completely devoted to their kama and krodha. Kama krodha parayanaha means they're devoted to kama and krodha. So what do? They resort to unfair means. Anyayena artha sanchayaha means they do anything. They don't think about it's correct or wrong, ethical, unethical, moral, immoral. No, that thought is gone from their mind. Now they have to get it. Whatever happens, they have to get it. So anyayena artha sanchayaha. So he says this is what happens. This is the effect of surrendering to desire. When one becomes a slave of their desire, then one becomes like this. One does things which are completely unacceptable. And therefore, the Gita, the Indian knowledge system, says you should learn to make desire your slave. You don't become the slave of the desire. The desire should be our slave. We should direct them in the correct way. Okay, now a doubt will come that, okay, you're saying all these negative things about karma, but suppose, let's say somebody's desire is fully satisfied. Okay, somebody wants something, say I want a XUV 700, and let's assume that I have the money or I can take a loan and I buy that XUV 700. And now won't I be happy? Okay, there's an answer to that. Maybe I will be, but generally what is observed is this. This is from the Mahabharata, from Vidura Niti. There's a portion of the Mahabharata called the Vidura Niti, where Vidura is trying to advise Dhritarashtra. Just now somebody mentioned Vidura, Krishna talking to Duryodhana. Similarly, before the Kurukshetra war, various intelligent people tried to stop the war. They tried to speak to Duryodhana or to Dhritarashtra and try to convince them to not allow the war to happen. So Vidura is speaking to Dhritarashtra and he gives him a lot of different advice. And as a part of that, just before he concludes, he speaks this. He says, Yat prithivyam vrihi yavam hiranyam pashavah striyaha nalamekasya tatsarvam iti pashyanna na muhyati. He says, in this entire earth, yat prithvivyam vrihihi. Vrihihi means rice. Yavam means barley. Hiranyam means gold. Pashavaha means the cattle or the horses. You can include the horses also. And striha means women. Okay, these are all considered as objects of enjoyment, different ways. And you can say these are symbolic of any other kind of wealth also. So, how much ever you give to a single person, na alam ekasya tat sarvam. Even one person, if you give the entire quantity of all the rice, barley, gold, everything present on earth to even one person, it will not satisfy the desire of that one person. Because desire has a nature, by its inherent dharma of kama, is it is not going to be satisfied. It is something that can never be permanently satisfied. Why? Because it is satisfied for some time, it may remain quiet. After some time, I am not happy with my XUV 700 anymore because I see that my next neighbor has bought a bigger car or a better car. I want that car. I want the latest model. So the desire comes back. The same desire which made me buy that XUV 700 has now come back and it's bothering me. It wants me to buy the next thing. So it will never be satisfied. And therefore he says, he's telling Dhritarashtra that iti pashyan, seeing this, adopting this perspective, one who is adopting this perspective, na muhyati, will not get confused. Na muhyati means will not get confused or will not get perplexed, will not get bewildered. He's telling Dhritarashtra that, look, your son, Duryodhana, is like this. He's a guy who will never be satisfied. He will go on asking for more and more and more, and therefore don't try to satisfy him. Instead, you keep him under your control. He says this. No amount of everything on this earth can satisfy the karma of even one person. This is the nature of karma. And so the Gita says in the second chapter actually has an overview of the whole book. It says, Apuryamanam achala pratishtham samudramapaha pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sa shantim apnoti na kama kami. So it says, just like there's an ocean. Okay? Now, so many rivers are flowing into that ocean, continuously pouring water into the ocean. But we don't see the level of the ocean going up. The ocean remains as it is. It has high tide, low tide, high tide, low tide, which is not controlled by the rivers. It's controlled by the moon and so on. And it has its waves, and all the time it remains more or less the same. It has its behavior. The ocean remains what it is, regardless of how many rivers pour how much ever water into it. It says, in the same way, if we, in our mind, remain stable, remain calm, remain steady, regardless of how many desires keep emerging into our mind. The desires are like the rivers. The desires keep coming. You cannot prevent a desire like I want a XUV 700 or I want to become the CEO. That desire will come to the mind. But just because a desire comes does not mean I should pursue it. I should not think that everything that I desire, I should pursue and try to get it. That is where discrimination is to be used. So it says a person should remain calm, just observing the desire. Desire comes, observe it, but remain what you are. Don't lose your stability. Okay, that's the point being made here. One who is able to tolerate, and such a person, he says, Sa shantim apnoti na kama kami. One who tries to satisfy all the desires which come will never be peaceful. But the person who learns to tolerate those desires, like the ocean is tolerating the rivers which come into it, such a person attains happiness and peace. That's what we want. We want happiness, we want peace. And it's such a person who attains it, not a person who pursues those desires. Now, this is from the 5th chapter. It's a very, very, very important shloka, and I'd like you to also talk about it after I explain to you. It says, Kama krodha vimuktanam yatinam yata chetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. And now with this, we will go to understanding the nature of the self. And I want you to also talk about it. What does this shloka tell us? It's from the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Kama krodha vimuktanam means of those people who are free from the disturbances caused by their kama and krodha, right? Which means kama and krodha will come. Desires come, sometimes anger also comes. We may not be able to, it's impractical to say that desire will never come to me. Desire comes to all of us. Even to a sage, a thought of desire may come in the mind. But it says, learn to become free from the disturbance by that desire. So becoming free from the disturbance is practical. Of those sincere aspirants, means who are trying to become like this. Yatinam means of those sincere aspirants. Yatachetasam means those who have controlled their minds. So people who are trying to become like this are now trying to get control over their mind. They're trying to bring the mind under control, right? Because only by bringing the mind under control, one can remain peaceful. So for such people, abhitaha means nearby. What is nearby? Brahma nirvanam, that is perfect freedom. Nirvanam means freedom and Brahma means perfection. So perfection of freedom exists. Vidita atmanam. Now this is the important word for our session. It says those who understand the self. Vidita atmanam. Atma means the self. Vidita means knows. Those who have understood. Knowing the self. So for these people who have actually managed to control or overcome, by controlling the mind, overcome the disturbances caused by the desires and anger, they are able to know the self. They are able to understand their real self. So this is the meaning of this particular shloka. I'll just build upon this to explain this thing. I'm going to integrate now what we have learned. Trividham narakasya idam dwaram nashanam atmanaha. This is from the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Trividham narakasya idam dwaram nashanam atmanaha. Kamaha krodhas tatha lobha tasmadetat trayam tyajet. Very beautiful shloka. I'll actually give you this PPT. You can actually refer to it in the future too. It says there are 3 doors to hell. To hellish existence. What are the 3 doors? Kamaha, krodha, tata lobha. Kama means desire, krodha means anger, and lobha means greed. What Adam was talking about in the beginning, the desire which never ends. Greed is that which ensures, the presence of greed ensures that even after desire is fulfilled, one will never become peaceful. If greed was not there, then once desire is satisfied, one will remain peaceful. But greed ensures that even after fulfilling the desire, one will not remain peaceful. So this 3 together, I have depicted like this. They are the 3 gears which cause our suffering and which come in the way of good decision making. Our life is perfect when we are able to make good decisions. We make bad decisions because of these 3 gears, kama, krodha and lobha. So I have named them as nashakatrayam, drawing upon the language used in the shloka, the destructive triad. Together they are called the destructive triad. I'm calling them the destructive triad because together they destroy a person. We can think of numerous examples, and from the Mahabharata, the ideal example is Duryodhana. You can see how Duryodhana goes through this. I'll tell you a story too after some time. I'm keeping the story for some more time, a different story from what you have read now. Very beautiful story, which explains how Duryodhana went through this in his life, the destructive triad, and he could never come out of it. That was his, you can say, destiny. He couldn't come out. So many people advised him for his good, for his welfare, but he couldn't come out of it. And just like in this story, Vishwamitra is contrasted with Vasishta. Right? Vasishta is a very calm person. All the good qualities you see in this story in Vasishta, and you see Vishwamitra in contrast. He is disturbed, he's going on trying, but he doesn't succeed. In the same way, in the Mahabharata as a whole, Duryodhana is contrasted with whom? Can you guess? Who is the contrasting character for Duryodhana? Yudhishthira. So whole Mahabharata can be seen as a study in the contrast of two major characters. One is Yudhishthira on the one hand and Duryodhana on the other hand. So there is one story I'm going to tell you after some time, which brings out this contrast very nicely. Okay, I'm not sure you've heard the story before. Some of you might have heard, but I will tell you. Now this takes us to trying to understand what the self means. It says, Etaihi vimuktaha kaunteya tamodvarais tribhir naraha acharati atmanaha shreyaha tato yati param gatim. So one who becomes free from this destructive triad. Says, Etaihi vimuktaha means one who is free from these three. Tamodvaraihi, this is called tamodvaram. There it's called Narakasya dwaram, means the doors to hellish existence. Here it's called door of darkness, doors to darkness. Okay, hellish existence, darkness. So one who becomes free from these three doors, he engages in activities. Acharati atmanaha shreyaha. He does activities which are beneficial to his self, his real self. And tato yati parangatim. Then he attains the perfection of life, perfect happiness of life. Okay. One who is free from these three doors to darkness does good to one's own self and therefore attains the highest destination. You can say perfect destination. So based on all this, let's try to now distinguish between the nature of the self in two terms. Okay. This is based on the how the Indian knowledge system talks about the self. There's a distinction made between our current self and our pure self, what we really are and what we currently are. And the whole process of reformation or transformation, as Professor also was saying in the morning, is the process of moving from the current self to the real self, to the pure self. So what is the contrast between them? The current self tends to become disturbed every now and then, right? All of us become disturbed by different things. It could be our boss at work, it could be our children at home, it could be our neighbor, or it could be even somebody, a stranger we meet on the way. Disturbances keep coming to us, right? But a person who has understood their pure self and realized that pure self will always remain calm and peaceful. So you see the example of Vasishtha is always calm. Even when he is attacked by somebody with the worst weapons, he is very calmly handling it. He holds his Brahmadanda and absorbs everything. And he doesn't feel within him, that's something to be noted, like I said in the beginning too, he doesn't feel a sense of vengeance on Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra feels a sense of vengeance on him, but he doesn't feel the same towards Vishwamitra. He doesn't say, you attacked me, you destroyed my ashram, now I'll show you who I am. He doesn't do that. He just says, I'll absorb whatever you, and now you have seen my strength. Now you can go back. He lets him go, right? So this shows that he is situated in the pure self, Swarupa. That's called Atma Swarupa. Whereas Vishwamitra has his own Swabhav. All of us have our own Swabhav. We are in our Swabhav. Okay, Swabhav means our current self. Now, a part of our current self is often confused. We are not sure of what we are doing. We look for clarity, right? Not all the time, but sometimes. Sometimes we get up in the morning, we don't know what to do today, right? Or sometimes we question, am I really taking the right decision? Should I really do this or should I not do this? There's ambiguity in our mind, right? That uncertainty, which troubles us. But somebody who is in their pure self, in their Swarupa, never has this ambiguity. They're always very clear in their mind about what they're doing because they've already sorted it out. So when they get up in the morning, they know what to do that day and they know what to do for the rest of their life. They're very clear. In the current Swabhav, we experience alternating cycles of sadness with happiness. It's a good thing that sadness doesn't remain all the time, but it's not a good thing that happiness doesn't remain all the time, right? Happiness comes, we become happy for some time and we want it to last, but unfortunately, sadness also comes after some time. So sadness and happiness is an alternating phenomena in our current Swabhav. But somebody in their pure swabhav, like you'll see Vasishta in this example, immensely happy all the time. He is always in a state of joy, always experiencing bliss inside. Okay, depression happens. Depression is an extreme case of sadness. For somebody in their pure swarupa, he is never depressed, he is always inspired. In a depressed state, we feel we don't want to do anything. Okay, in the extreme case of depression, what happens? People take their own life, right? Because they don't see any purpose in life. That's why they take their own life. But the opposite of that is to always be inspired, always live for something better, always see optimism, always see a bright future ahead, right? A state of being inspired. And that is the nature of being in the pure self. We sometimes feel jealous or envious, but in the pure state, never envious. In the current swabhav, sometimes we feel angry, we feel hateful towards someone. In the pure swabhav, there is love, the feeling of prem or affection, rati, towards others. In our current swabhav, we often feel incomplete. There's something more that I should be than I am today. I'm not happy with what I am, because I keep comparing myself with somebody else. He is so much better than me. He has so much more recognition than I have. He has so much more money than I have. He has a bigger house. I live in a 3-bedroom house. He lives in a 6-bedroom house. So this kind of comparison is always present in my current swabhav, because I am always doing this. This comparison is always going on, and the sense of incompleteness dominates my consciousness. Whereas somebody who is in that pure swarupa never does this comparison. He is always feeling complete within himself. This is an extremely important point, because completeness is not, according to our knowledge system, is not a product of external accumulation. It is a product of internal enrichment. Completeness comes from internal enrichment, not from external accumulation. By accumulating things from outside, if you try to get completeness, then you will never be complete, because we can never accumulate everything that exists in this world, right? But if we look inside and enrich the inside, expand the inside, then that is very much possible to achieve, and that gives us the sense of completeness very quickly. And of course, in our current swabhav, we have the fear of death. We know that one day, or we don't think about it. Normally, we don't think about our death, but at the back of our mind, we know that one day this will end, right? Maybe when we are 100 years of age, or when we are lucky, we'll live more than 100 also. But we know we are going to die. There's a fear of death, anticipation of death. But this is a beautiful thing that our knowledge system points out, that there is no death for us. This is one significant difference between the modern knowledge system and our Indian knowledge system, that the Indian knowledge system is based on the understanding of eternity of life. It says that the individual never dies. It's only the body which dies. Have you heard this before? We only change the body. The body changes, but we never die. We never become non-existent. We always exist. They always exist. And therefore, right now it may be theoretical. When we hear this, it's just theory. But somebody who has realized their pure self actually experiences that eternity. And because they experience the eternity, they are free from fear. There's no fear of death. For them, death is just like a movie getting over. One movie gets over and the new movie begins. I'll say you're in a theater and you've gone there to spend the whole day watching different movies. Then do you feel scared when one movie gets over? No, you just look forward to the next movie. That's all, right? It's just like that. So a person who has realized the self, he knows that when whatever is called death that happens, then only that body will change, but a new body will come. And therefore, he doesn't feel any anxiety about it. He's very comfortable. And we see that mentality in Vasishta too. When he is being attacked very mercilessly, he is not afraid. There's no fear in him. He's very confident. He's very calm and confident. Right? Even if it were to happen that he will get killed, that is not a matter of fear for him. He will overcome it. So this is the thing, and essentially what it is saying is that our pure self is better than our current self. Our swabhava is not as good as our swarupa. Our swarupa is better than our swabhava. Or in other words, we are better than what we think we are, or what we know we are. We know our current self, but actually we have a better existence to us which can be discovered by us. Okay. So I've actually spoken for a long time now, and I've given you a lot of theory. I want you to contemplate on this. It's now 3:30. We can have a break if you like. Would you like to have a break? We can have a 15 minutes break. The break is supposed to be between two sessions. So we can come back at 3:45, and during this time, please think over whatever we have done. And I would like to begin the next section with your thoughts on whatever we have heard so far, and then I will go forward after that. Welcome back. I hope you had a refreshing break. So we saw this slide just before the break, and we distinguished between our current self and the pure self. And we also made an observation that our pure self is an ideal goal for us. It's a better version of ourselves, and we are actually fundamentally better than what we think we are. We can become that. We can discover our real self. So the title of this session is Enhancing Self-Awareness. So what is meant by that? What is meant by enhancing self-awareness? Here is the answer. Enhancing self-awareness essentially means moving, transforming from our current self to our pure self. And involved in that process, or important to that process, important to the process of transformation, is that freedom from unwanted desires, from anger, from greed. Kama, krodha, lobha, those three together form the destructive triad, nashakatrayam. So freedom from that, becoming free from that, or overcoming that, is an important factor in the transformation from our current self to our pure self. So this is something, if we keep in mind, we can begin this journey of transformation. So the whole story of Vishwamitra and Vasishtha, two characters, the story has been made in such a way in the Ramayana to contrast the nature of these two. What Vishwamitra is going through, as he was going through, he is actually transforming from his current self to his pure self. He becomes aware of his current self, or we become aware when we read the story. When the Kamadhenu incident happens, when Kamadhenu first comes into his life, that is when the trigger comes to discover the current self. And all the way from there till the end of the story, it's a journey of transformation, where he's struggling with his current self. He's struggling with kama, krodha, lobha, right? All the time he's beaten by that. And then eventually he realizes. Okay, so we'll come to that point of realization once more. But here, before I go to the next part of the story, I want you to reflect and offer me your thoughts. What kind of thoughts do you have regarding what we have discussed so far? I'll give you the mic. Please share whatever thoughts you have, and then I'll go forward. I'll also tell you the other story, which is now in suspense.
Sir, thank you for the last session. It was really many new things to learn. Sir, I have a question that obviously, as you said, that our ultimate goal should be pure self. So is there any, it's already written that we need to be freedom from the disturbances, but is there any sort of practices that you recommend in our daily professional life particularly, and the personal lives as well, that we should be doing to achieve that? So this is one question. And second question comes for, like, it is for particularly for self-awareness. So it's talking about self only, current self and pure self. But if I say that, okay, I may achieve pure self by doing, getting freedom from these all things. But there is something called social and family responsibilities, which are directly or indirectly attached to it. and it's not controlled by self. And that may lead to again get into the traps of
Kama,
these
krodha,
things.
lobha.
Yes. So for maybe for family, I need to make some compromises where I'm not able to achieve that. So what about that?
Exactly. Very good question, actually. Very good question. Very relevant question for this session. How do we actually go about discovering our current self and a pure self? And how do we deal with our real world? Do we have to leave this world? How do we deal with it? Right? Now, I'll answer the second question first, that this process of transformation is not a process of leaving our responsibility. It's not about leaving this world and going away. It's about living in this world and turning our attention inside. The essence of finding our pure self is to look inwards. Our pure self is within us. We are that self. So the essence here is to say that currently our swabhav is made by our external focus. Think about it. Take a moment to reflect on this, whatever I'm saying now, that most of the time our focus is on all matters external to us. We are concerned about, for example, the politics that's happening in the country. Okay, all the time there is some political news, the headlines in every newspaper, every day is something to do with political aspects happening. Some election, somebody has left a party and joined another party, somebody is now going to become the next chief minister of some state. And so our attention is consumed by a news like that. If it's not politics in the country, then it is something like sports. Now India and New Zealand are playing. Okay, how can India lose a match within India? New Zealand has beaten us so badly. So our attention goes on that. If it's not that, it's about something in the family, some issues in the family, right? And so on. If you think of all the things which occupy our mind, what occupies our mind from morning to evening, day after day after day, all of those things are external to us. How many of us ever think that there is an internal self, there's something internal to me which I can contemplate upon? We rarely think like this. So this process of transformation, of finding the pure self, is essentially a process of looking inwards. Okay, now a very frightening thought comes when I say this. But if I look inwards, then what will happen to my work? What will happen to my family? I have to deal with my family, I have to deal with my job, I have to deal with so many things. What will happen to that? The answer is simple. Looking inwards does not mean completely cutting off from the outside world. Looking inwards is a process of sharpening our own ability by which we can view the outside world through a different lens. We remain in the outside world, or we remain in this very world, but now we look at the external world through a different lens from what we were seeing it all this time, because we are aware of our real self. So what happens is that we don't lose connection with this world. We learn to connect with it in a better way than we have connected with it so far. That is why our mind becomes much clearer. We are able to see reality in a much clearer way than we did earlier. When we connect with ourselves, we're able to see the external realities around us in a better way than we saw earlier. So we become more capable of dealing with the outside world in a proper way than we could do earlier. The mistakes we did earlier, we learn not to repeat those mistakes because we see things from a different perspective. Okay, so the properties of the pure self I listed, those are a few prominent properties, but there are many nuances in them. As we read and understand this more and more, and as we contemplate on ourselves, we learn to sharpen this ability. It is not an overnight process. It's not that just by talking about it in one session like this, we'll now discover our pure self. It's a lifelong journey. In the case of Vishwamitra, you see thousands of years. Okay, he's doing tapasya after tapasya, and it's taking such a long time for him to come to that stage. It's a long process, but there has to be a beginning somewhere. So this is the process. This is the process of discovering, and at least the second question, I hope I have answered, that we don't cut off from this world, we remain responsible. And so there is a struggle. Like you correctly said, the family will keep, or not only family, but all the external elements, as they come to us, they will create situations of desire, anger, greed. Kama, krodha, lobha will keep coming in different ways. But now, because we are on this journey, we keep reminding ourselves that no, I have to respond to it in a different manner. So we learn how to respond to it. We learn how to deal with it in a more mature way by not letting our own selfishness, our karma. See, essentially, my friend here, Mr. Asif, that's your name? Yeah. So he was asking me about how to, judge whether I'm doing the right thing or wrong. Because today, if I do something, I take a decision and it appears right to me. I did it with thinking that it's right. Tomorrow, somebody will say it's wrong, right? So the outcome may be judged by somebody as wrong because it does harm to somebody. Anything we do, this world is so complex that today, when we do anything, whatever we do, it will benefit some people, and that's our intention. We do it with the intention to benefit somebody, but somebody else has a problem. It will affect somebody else negatively. So any decision we take, because of the complex nature of the world, always has some downside to it. So then how do we take a decision? So he was pointing out that we should somehow take a decision. We should take a decision. We should not go into analysis paralysis by just going on thinking about it. I agree with him. But then the point I wanted to make was this, that when you take a decision, let the decision not be driven by selfishness, that I should increase my wealth, my power, my position, my property. Let it be driven by selflessness, by the thinking that let my decision benefit people at large. In the process, I will also benefit. But let it first benefit the world at large. Whatever I do should benefit everybody. As a teacher, for example, it's my duty to think that whatever decisions I take in my course, when I teach a course, when I evaluate my students' papers, when I give them some instructions, that it should benefit them. It shouldn't be out of my ego that I make them do something. It should be to something that make them learn. They learn the subject better. They're able to develop a better understanding by which they can then use it better in their future. If that thinking guides my decisions as a teacher, then I may have to struggle a little bit because I have to make some sacrifices. But doing those sacrifices ultimately in the long run will make them happy and also come back to me as a happy result, because they'll also be happy with me, right? So it makes everybody happy. So that's the point. A decision has to be taken. The decision will benefit people. It will also harm some people because of the complex nature of the world. We can't do something that will make everybody happy, right? Today's world is like that. As a CEO of a company or even as a middle-level manager, you make a decision, some people are bound to be unhappy, however good intention you have. But the point is in the good intention. If the intention is good, then you have taken the right decision. It's not about the outcome. It's about the intention with which you do it. And that's the point we're trying to make. The pure self means doing things with the right intention. That is enhanced self-awareness. And that's the difference between Vishwamitra and Vasishtha too, you see. Vishwamitra is driven by his selfishness. I want this, I want that. I want Kamadeva. I want power. I want to prove myself. I want to show who I am. He is driven by that thinking. Whereas Vasishtha is not driven by that thinking. This is the difference. Sir, I hope I have at least answered your question to some extent, right?
Sir, supplementing to answer to his question, in the mind, a number of thoughts generates frequently, and each and every moment, number of thoughts cropping up. So that is the external materialistic life. So the art of directing the emotions or the thoughts, it will itself leads to the pure self. So it is an art. So we need not to leave this family life and all that, but we have to learn how to direct the thoughts, because it may be kama, krodha, lobha, whatsoever may be the arishad vairis. If we direct them, which emotions, which thoughts I am carrying, how to handle, so it slowly goes to the pure self. That's.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Asif ji, yeah, give him the mic. One more mic, sir. I didn't see that.
Can we have one example where these three parameters do not touches to our decision? Desire, anger, and greed.
ऐसा कौन सा डिसीजन है जिसमें 3 पैरामीटर नहीं आते?
Okay, it's a good question. Give me a decision, give me an example of a decision where a person has acted upon, acted in.
Sir, one more question.
Yeah.
I think public is not understanding by the word decision. When we say decision, it has lot of thought process in that. When we come to a decision, it is not my wish, it is my decision. That means lot of hard work, lot of thought process has involved in that. Then only I have taken the decision.
Correct.
So public should be understand what is meant by the decision. First.
Is it a desire or a decision?
Yeah.
Desire, decision is the final, you can say, the resolve.
Yeah.
That you say that you will do this. The choice of your final action.
Precisely decide, planned.
Yeah.
I
When
think
we say
the final
decision-
choice of option that you will do compared to multiple options you had earlier, that is your decision.
And it is a well thought process that after I have come to the concluded decision. So I just wanted one example where these 3 parameters
Right.
are not touched.
Very good. What I'll do is I'll first give you an example from the Mahabharata. It's a text. And then later on, we can also think of a real life, I mean, today's example, current day example. Okay. Now, this Mahabharata example comes from a story, because I just told you that, there's a contrast between 2 characters. The whole Mahabharata is a contrast between Yudhishthira and Duryodhana, right? So let's put that down. And this story in the Mahabharata is called the Ghosha Yatra. Have you heard this before? Ghosha Yatra? Ghosha Yatra. Some of you might have heard this before. Yeah? You have a doubt? Oh, sure. Yeah. Not well, sir? Okay. Want the AC to be soft. Okay. So this story is not very much heard of, so I will narrate it. This happens when the Pandavas and their wife Draupadi, they have been sent on a Vanavas. The Vanavas, as we all know, came out of a gambling match, and the Kauravas, they cheat them. Shakuni is used by Duryodhana, and they are told to eventually go to the forest and live in the forest for 13 years, out of which 12 years they can be going anywhere they want, and the 13th year they should be incognito. They should not be discovered. So they go, and one principle they follow in the forest is they won't stay in one place, one single place for a long time. Because if they stay for a long time in a single place, can you guess why they wouldn't want to do that? For example, they can go to one place and then build a settlement there and stay for 12 years there itself. Why don't they do that? Anyone can guess what their thinking was?
Attachment from that very place.
Okay. Attachment to place, which is one thing, is one aspect of it. There's one more aspect to it, very important aspect. Okay, that's also a nice perspective. I don't know if that is highlighted there, but actually in the Vanavas time, they don't engage in that thing. They don't engage in the activity of relationship building at that time. They only develop their abilities. No, fear is not there. They are not afraid of anything. So one perspective that's given is that the ecosystem, if they stayed in one place, can get very disturbed, because they live a very simple life. They live in a hut kind of a thing. They don't build up with this thing. But if they stay in one place, what would happen is that place would undergo a lot of development. Because their nature, the Pandavas were such that a lot of people, they were celebrities. They were very popular among the public, among the general public. And a lot of sages and scholarly people and even general public liked them very much because they were very liked people. Even when they were on Vanavas, those first 12 years, people would keep visiting them. People would keep coming and meeting them, visiting them, wanting to stay near them, building some settlement near them. So they didn't want to stay in one place because if they stayed, then a big city would come up there. And that would destroy the forest and so many animals and everything would get upset in that place. So they kept moving. They just built a settlement for some time, like a tent or a camp, stayed for some time there, maybe a week or 2 weeks, and then go to another place, and then go to another place. So they kept moving in those 12 years. So in the course of this, moving from one place to another place, they once reach a place called as Dvaitavanam. Okay, it's called Dvaitavanam. And this Dvaitavanam is very close to Hastinapur. Hastinapur is where the capital is. And Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra and everybody are living there. The palace is there. So this Dvaitavanam happens to be close to this. So someone from the capital goes there and meets them, and then they come back. They come back and report to Duryodhana that Duryodhana asks them, how are they? So this person says, yeah, they're doing fine. They're all right. In fact, they're very happy. They're very peaceful. They're very happy. Because that was their nature. They were always happy. Whatever condition you put them, they are internally very happy. They're peaceful. They're very happy. So when Duryodhana hears this, he becomes very unhappy. Because in his mind, his happiness is a function of Yudhishthira's happiness. If Yudhishthira is happy, he will be unhappy. If he is unhappy, Duryodhana will be happy. That is how his thinking was. So when he hears that they are all very happy, he becomes miserable. He becomes very disturbed. So he consults his best friends. Who are his two best friends? Karna and Shakuni. Right? So he consults them. What should I do? So they have a discussion and they come up with an idea. They say that now we cannot do anything to them because they have been there and we can't really do anything. But there's still one thing we can do to humiliate them. So Karna says that look, Duryodhana, because he's all the time, Karna's job is to boost his ego, to try to inflate Duryodhana's ego more and more, and Duryodhana lends himself to that. So he wants to hear such things. So Karna tells him, look, you have actually now amassed all the wealth in the kingdom. Earlier, the Pandavas were there, they were ruling from Indraprastha, and they made a lot of money. They conducted the Rajasuya, etc. They became big people. But now you have successfully managed to send them off, and you have managed to amass their wealth also. You have become very big. But they don't know about it. If they know about it, they will become miserable. If they know that their kingdom also has been taken over by you and all the wealth now belongs to you, they will feel very bad. So let's make them feel bad. Let's go and do that. Let's show them who we are. So he makes a plan. He says that let's do like this. We'll go to the forest where they are and we'll parade our wealth before them. We'll take our best, horses, elephants, chariots, our soldiers, and do a parade like we do on Independence Day, Republic Day. I can imagine it would be something like that. Show our might, power to them. So that idea sounds great. Duryodhana thinks it's a great idea. He said, yeah, we should do this. And he starts visualizing how miserable Yudhishthira will become when he does all this. He starts fantasizing on that, what he's going to do and how that fellow will feel bad and how they will not be able to say anything. They'll just have to watch. So then they get a doubt. Okay, but first we have to take the king's permission. Dhritarashtra, he's still the top authority, and he will never allow. Because Dhritarashtra, he had a feeling of guilt always. Although he didn't prevent Duryodhana from doing what he did, he always felt guilty that the Pandavas, after all, are my brothers' children, and I have actually allowed this to happen. So he was feeling bad. So when he gets the news that they are doing well, he feels good. He feels happy. So Duryodhana knows that. So when he comes up with this plan, he now becomes concerned. He says that if I go to him and ask him, he will never allow. So what should be done? So they think for some time, and then they come up with an idea. They say that let's not tell him we are going there to parade our wealth. Let's just tell him that we are going there to count our cattle. Because that Dvaitavanam is also a place where their cattle are kept. The huge, what is called as a goshala. You're familiar with the word goshala? A goshala is a place where cows are kept. Cows and bulls, the cattle, where they are kept, that's called goshala. So a place where a lot of goshalas are kept, and all the people who take care of the goshala, where they live, that place is called a gosha. This word gosha comes from there. So the Dvaitavanam is the region of that capital, around the capital. That's the place where these cattle are kept. So let's go and tell Dhritarashtra that we are going there to do an audit of whether all the cows and the bulls are doing fine, the count is proper, whether they are increasing or decreasing. Let's find out. So let's tell him that, and he will not say no. He cannot say no. So they tell him that, but he is intelligent enough to know why they want to go there. He can immediately make out. So he says, okay, you go, I'll let you go, but please don't disturb the Pandavas. They have already been unfair to them. We have already sent them there, and we have given them a miserable life. We have made them live in the forest when they are actually entitled to live in the palace. So please don't disturb them. As long as you don't disturb them, I'm okay with what you're doing. He says, okay. So they go. And it's described how they go with all their retinue. They take all the elephants, horses, chariots, big soldiers, their weapons, everything. They go, they want to show. They have all this. They make a huge march into the forest. They go to this place. And because they have to report back to Dhritarashtra, they first do that auditing of the cattle. They do the Ghosh part of it, they do. That happens in a short time because they have enough people for that. So they quickly finish that, and then they want to go and trouble these people. So they go to the place where these people are camping. They are camping around a lake. There's a lake there, a very beautiful place. It's described how beautiful that place was. Okay, tomorrow you will go to Dimna Lake, right? Tomorrow morning you're going there. Even Dimna Lake is very beautiful. So when you go to Dimna Lake, please remember this story. Okay, it's a very beautiful place, very peaceful. And there are a lot of nice plants and lotus flowers and everything growing there. So these Pandavas and their wife, they are camping there. They are very calm. And at that point of time, Yudhishthira, the eldest brother, is about to begin a yajna. Okay, are you familiar with the word yajna? Yajna means a form of worship. It's a form of worship. So he's about to begin a yajna because that's one of his activities. He does yajna frequently. So he's about to start that. So he's sitting down, and the other Pandavas are around him. They're just looking at him. And these people now come and start making a noise. So suddenly what happens? The Kaurava soldiers, the soldiers of Duryodhana, a couple of them, they encounter a stranger there. Somebody who is not a part of the Pandavas, and somebody who is not a part of their army also, but completely unknown looking guy who's there. So they run into him and he stops them. He says, he asks them, who are you guys? What are you guys doing here? So they find it strange. It's their kingdom. So they ask back, who are you? You tell us who you are. So they reply, this is our kingdom. You cannot ask us this question. We are here. This is our property. You tell us what you are doing here. So he says, look, we have come from heaven. We are called Gandharvas. Okay, there is one species of beings called as Gandharvas. Have you heard this term before? Gandharva. Gandharva refers to, just like we are called Manushya. We are all called Manushya, right? Manushya is one type of category of people. Now, in our Mahabharata, the description of other species also, like Gandharvas, Devas, and so on. So Gandharvas is one type of people, and they are there, and they are very powerful. They are not like Manusha, they are not like human beings, but they are much more powerful than human beings. They're very powerful. So this guy says, look, I'm a Gandharva and don't mess with me. Don't fool around with me. You know, I don't like your behavior. I don't like the way you're talking to me. I am not a Manusha like you, he says. So these people become angry. They go back to Duryodhana and tell him that, look, there's this guy who's talking like this, and we should know, we should not allow this. We have come here because it's our kingdom. So then there is an exchange of words between them. And the Gandharvas say that, look, we have come with our whole army, our king also, his name is Chitrasena. Chitrasena is also here. And we are not going to allow you to talk to us like this. And then they have a scrap. And there's a big battle. Okay, so the big battle between Duryodhana and the Kauravas on one side, and the army of the Gandharvas, the king and everybody on the other side. And this battle happens a little away from the lake. These Pandavas are still here and they don't know what's happening. This scrap happens, and this battle is a major battle. So in that battle, the Kauravas are badly defeated. The Gandharvas are very powerful, and these people are not able to fight with them. They have very magical skills, and they defeat the Kauravas. And Karna, you see, Karna is a guy who's got a very inflated image about himself, his own abilities. So before coming here, Karna has promised Duryodhana that, don't worry, whatever happens, I am there for you. You take any decision you like. You can fight with any enemy. I will protect you. Don't worry. But now what happens in this battle with the Gandharvas? The Gandharvas beat them up so badly that Karna's chariot is broken. His horses are killed and he is on the ground. So he shit scared. So he gets up and he just runs away from there. He doesn't look back also. He just runs away, drops all his weapons, and he runs away. So now Duryodhana is alone. The person who said he will protect him is not with him anymore. And soon after that, this king, the king of the Gandharvas, he captures Duryodhana and he ties him up. He binds him and throws him on the ground and puts his foot over him. He says, now will you behave yourself? Have you understood who we are? I'm going to kill you. And he starts dragging him on the ground. I'm going to finish you now, he says. So Duryodhana becomes extremely scared. So all the intention to trouble the Pandavas, everything is now forgotten. Now he's thinking how to save his life. Right? He's absolutely scared. So in the meantime, seeing that their king has been defeated and he is now about to get killed, the soldiers of Duryodhana, they run to the Pandavas. The Pandavas are nearby, so they run there and they find the 5 Pandavas and Draupadi. They go to Yudhishthira and they tell him, Maharaj, please listen to us. Our king Duryodhana has been captured by these foreigners, these Gandharvas who have come here. Please come and save us. We don't know what to do. We have been completely defeated. So Yudhishthira gets up. He says, what happened? Tell me the details. He hears the details and then he immediately turns to Bhima. Bhima is standing nearby. He turns to Bhima and says, look, Bhima, now I'm giving you a task. Please go there and please get Duryodhana freed from the hands of the Gandharvas. So Bhima and Draupadi, they are very cool because they have been watching this whole thing and they tell him that, Bhaiya, look, this guy is the worst villain in the world. He did everything, the way he insulted us, the way he insulted our wife. Now, the Gandharvas are doing to him what we should have done long back. We didn't do anything to him. We let him go. But now the Gandharvas are doing that to him, what he deserves. So why are you asking me to go and help him? I don't feel I should go, says this. So then Yudhishthira tells him, look, I would have myself gone because I see him not as somebody who has insulted us. I see him as my brother. He is my family member. And I see the Gandharvas as foreigners. They are outsiders. Between the family members, there may be a conflict, there may be a fight. That we should resolve within ourselves. But when an outsider comes, we should always give priority to our own family members. Our family members are dearer to us than the outsiders. The outsiders are always outsiders. So in front of them, we should not show the dispute between us. So he tells this to Bhima. He says, I would have gone, but I cannot go because I have already started this yajna. I'm sitting down in this yajna and I'm not supposed to go anywhere. I have to complete this before I go. And because you are capable of doing this, I'm asking you to go. Bhima hears all that, but he still doesn't want to go. He just stands quietly. He is not, because in Bhima's mind, he has been waiting for very eagerly for the day that he can get his hand on these people, right? So he doesn't want to go. He just stands there and looks. Then Yudhishthira looks at Arjuna. And immediately Arjuna understands that. He says, he doesn't wait for Yudhishthira to ask him. Immediately, as soon as his brother looks at him, he says, I will go, I will do it. So the moment he says, I will go, the other three brothers, Bhima, Nakula, Sahadeva, all three of them, they say, we will also come with you. So the four of them go. The four of them go, and then they challenge the king of the Gandharvas, saying that now you fight with us. Why have you done this? Why have you bound this guy? We don't like it. Our brother wants that he should be freed. So please fight with us and we will defeat you. The Gandharvas, they say, okay. So there's a battle again. The Gandharvas and the four Pandavas on one side. Actually, the way the battle is described, all the four are not required. Only one of them is enough. And that is Arjuna. It is said that in the whole Mahabharata, among all the characters in the Mahabharata, there were only two people who could not be defeated by anybody. They were so expert, they were so skilled in their abilities that nobody could defeat them. Nobody in the heavens also, even the gods would not be able to defeat them. They were so powerful. So who were the two? One is Arjuna and the other is not Karna. Karna ran away, no? Bhishma, yes. So Arjuna and Bhishma, only two characters who are so powerful that nobody can defeat them. So Arjuna is here, and when Arjuna brings out his best, in the time the crisis happens, he brings out his best, then he cannot be defeated. So he is in the front and the other three are supporting him. And in a very short time, they completely rout the army of the Gandharvas. So Chitrasena is the only guy left. And he is very powerful. So he does a lot of magical tricks and so on. He tries to vanish and this and that. But Arjuna knows how to counter that. So he counters it. He catches hold of him and ties him up. And he puts him on the floor. And he says, now the battle is over. So then Chitrasena gets up and he touches his feet. He touches Arjuna's feet. And they have had an interaction earlier. The king of the Gandharvas and Arjuna, they have interacted earlier. So they know each other. So for them, fighting with each other is not like a battle of enmity. It's like a sports match, right? At the end of a match, what happens? The players, they shake their hands. So they shake each other's hands and then they have a conversation in front of Duryodhana. In front of Duryodhana, they have a conversation. So Arjuna says, okay, now free him. I have defeated you. I have won the match. Now you free him. So in the course of that conversation, he asks him, in the first place, why did you fight with him and why do you want to kill him? Why do you want to put him in this condition? He asks him that. And then that Gandharva, he reveals to Arjuna why they have come there. He says, because the Pandavas don't know that. The Pandavas don't know the background behind the whole thing, right? So they say that, look, actually, these guys, Duryodhana and all these people, they came here because they wanted to humiliate you. And how do we know that? We know that because Indra, the god of the king of all the gods, he could make out through his powers, he could make out, even as they were planning, even as they were discussing before they came here, they were plotting to humiliate you. Indra came to know about it. And immediately he called me. Even before they came here, he called me and told me to come here and protect you people. He didn't want you to be embarrassed. After all, Indra is the father of Arjuna, right? So he said, he didn't want you to be embarrassed. So he sent us here. We have come here to protect you on his behalf. And that is why we went and got into a fight with them. We went and defeated them, and we have tied him up. And this guy deserves to be killed. He has already tortured you. He has insulted your wife. He has done so much harm to you. He has tried to kill you. He deserves to be killed. And if you permit me, I will kill him right now, he says. In front of him, he's lying there on the ground. He's tied up. Arjuna says no, because my brother doesn't want it. I would have said yes, but my brother says he should not be killed, so I don't allow it. So then they have a small debate with each other, whether he should be killed or not. And they decide that the only way to resolve it is to go and ask Yudhishthira whether we should do what we should do. So they drag this guy and they go to Yudhishthira. And they go and ask him, now this is what it is. We have defeated and he's here. You tell us what should be done. Yudhishthira has no doubt in his mind. He is very clear. He straight away says, please free him. He is my brother. Please free him. Let him go. So the Gandharvas say yes. They touch Yudhishthira's feet. They respect him. They say that whatever you say, we will do. They untie Duryodhana and they bid their farewell. They leave from there. They go back. Okay. So now only these people are left. The Pandavas on one side and Duryodhana and a few soldiers who are still alive. Karna is already gone. He's not there. So these few people are left. And so there's a conversation. So there, Duryodhana, he doesn't know what to say. He's completely, at a loss for words. So Yudhishthira tells him, look, you came here with some intention, but I advise you, as your elder brother, I advise you that this will only harm you. It will only get you into trouble. So please don't do this. We are all brothers, so don't have this bhavana against us. Don't have this wicked thinking against us. Please develop a mentality of, one family, we're all together. Develop that mentality and we will all be happy. Don't do this. If you do this, you will only get into more trouble. He tells him that. So Duryodhana cannot reply. It has nothing to reply. So he just bows his head and he goes away. He goes back. Now on the way back, he's thinking about this and he's so ashamed, so embarrassed. It's absolutely embarrassing, right? In front of Draupadi, in front of all the people that he tried to kill, they came and saved him. The people whom he tried to kill have now saved his life. What can be more embarrassing than that, right? And in such a humiliating manner. So he goes back, and on the way back, he's feeling so bad that he doesn't want to show his face. He cannot show his face in the kingdom anymore because everybody knows, everybody will know. So he decides to commit suicide, decides to end his life. So he tells the soldiers that, look, I won't come back with you. You keep going back. I'm going to stay here. He points to a place. I'll be here and I will do fasting unto death. Okay, so fasting unto death is not a new thing. We see today sometimes people do it and they want to protest for something. But it's an old thing. It's there in the Mahabharata. So Duryodhana does this fasting unto death. He starts fasting. He says, you go back and make my brother Dushasana. Dushasana will be the next king. Make him the king and I will end my life. I can't live anymore. As long as Yudhishthira is alive, I cannot live. So he goes away. Now these people, they go back and Karna, he doesn't know all this. So Karna just sees Duryodhana there. He comes running because Duryodhana is coming back alive. He thinks he has actually defeated the Gandharvas. He comes and congratulates him. And then the others educate him. They say that, no, this is not what happened. They tell him what happened. So after all this is over, the others who are there, they can't imagine a kingdom without him, right? Either he should be there or the Pandavas should be there. Somebody at the top should be ruling. So they go back and they talk to him. They spend a lot of time. There's a whole discussion on how they convince him It's very difficult to convince him once he decides something, even if it's about suicide. So they spend time, they convince him not to commit suicide. Okay, if he committed suicide, then probably that's the end of Mahabharata there itself. But they convince him and they bring him back. And when they bring him back, something very interesting happens. Shakuni comes there and he has a conversation with Shakuni. And you won't imagine this. Shakuni was the person who was responsible for sending the Pandavas to the Vanavas, right? He's the one who actually made the gambling match. He fixed the gambling match and made these people go there. Now he tells Duryodhana that, look, we have reached the limit. Now this guy has saved your life. The correct thing to do is to bring them back from the Vanavas and give them their kingdom. Now let's forget this. No more enmity with them. Let them live in Indraprastha. Let them rule the kingdom. Give them back their share of the kingdom. We will live here and let's both be peaceful. Let's forget about all this. Are you aware of this? Shakuni advising Duryodhana to do this. Reverse the whole thing. This is there in Mahabharata. Even Shakuni, the person who was responsible, instrumental for this, even he says this. But Duryodhana says, no, my dear uncle, it's not possible for me. If you want me to remain alive, then he has to die. If he lives, then I have to die. One of the two. Both of us cannot live together. Because his mind, his swabhav, we talked about swabhav, his current swabhav, his current self is so wicked that he can't imagine any amount of purity coming to him. Even the smallest drop of purity doesn't exist in him. So he says this. And so he goes back and then he rules the kingdom. He also conducts a big yajna and all that. This is the ending part of the story where he wants to show his public. He wants to overcome that depression. He's now in depression, so he's coming out of it. So to come out of it, he makes a big show again about his dharmic nature. He tries to show that he's a very dharmic person. He does some dhan and this and that. And the story ends like that. Right? So this is the story of two characters. The whole Mahabharata actually is a contrast of these two. And this particular story brings out how the two extremes in their natures, how the characters are of two different types. One of them is so kind that even when he tries to kill him, he goes and saves him. The other person, when the other person is not even harming him, he wants to kill him. It's two extreme characters being contrasted with each other. So in this story, the question that you asked me about, give me an example of somebody who's completely free from kama, krodha, lobha, and takes a decision based on that, a selfless decision. Now, this is a good example of a decision. Yudhishthira says that let's go and save him, right? Who will do that, right? Will anybody ever do that? None of us, even the kindest person will not do that, but he does it. He takes a decision that's completely selfless. He doesn't even ask. After saving him, now if you think over it, after saving this guy, Duryodhana, he could have negotiated. He could have negotiated saying that I will ask the Gandharvas to free you only if you give the kingdom back to us, right? That was a good time to negotiate. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't ask for settlement of that also. He agrees to complete the Vanavas. They don't even talk about it. So that is the extreme nature of Yudhishthira on the one side. He's completely free from kama, krodha, lobha. So his pure self is so much activated. Okay, it's a very ideal kind of condition that it's not easy to even visualize it. Most of us cannot even, I mean, none of us can even think about it. But it's there. It's a reference point for us. Right? But even if we go 10% towards that, we will become much more peaceful than we are now. That's the proposition of this course, this session. And even if we make a slight movement towards that, we will become happier than what we are. We'll become less stressed than what we are. That's the point I'm trying to make. Now you can think of examples in today's world also, where people who may not be like this extreme, but still will be quite selfless in the kind of things they do. Right? We were discussing during the break about Ratan Tata. Right? He was an exemplary personality. He was here, Jamshedpur. Exemplary personality. So we can think of many such people. There are many people like that. It's not, the world is not full of Duryodhanas, fortunately, right, for us. The world has a lot of good people. Sir? Abdul Kalam was a wonderful example of that. Complete selfless in his nature, right? I've actually interacted with him face to face once, only for a second. He came to one of our convocations. Very nice person, very humble, selfless, never had an ego that I am the president of India, I am this, I am that, I am the chairman of ISRO. He never thought of himself like that. Always thought of himself as a servant of this country. Right? You can write a story on him. Very beautiful example of a selfless personality. So we have many examples of people whom we can model our pure self upon. When we think of pure self, it's not just an ideal, theoretical thing. It is something that we can actually think of moving towards by looking at these real life examples. Okay, I have talked a lot. I want you to speak. I'm going on speaking. Please raise your hand. Anyone? Anything?
Sir, making one to desire, how to take that, sir? Because in a corporate environment, in an organization, we are making the people to work. So we are giving, we are making them to desire in the form of appraisal, in the form of incentives, increments, awards, rewards. In that way, is it dharmic or adharmic? Am I doing adharmic by making them to desire?
It's a very good question, very relevant question. You had something to ask? Similar question? Or you have an answer for this? Anybody has an
Actually,
answer also can tell me.
In continuation of what he says, that similar thing is that in our childhood also, our parents can give us a desire that this guy is good at play, this guy is good at like study. That is a desire for us. From where we get the motivation to become like him or become like her. So I'm still confusing the desire. I am agree that the desire leads us to anger, greed, but if the desire was not present there, how I can motivate myself to be go to the my next step?
Wonderful. Any other questions or thoughts on this? I'll give you my perspective on this. Yes, sir.
Yeah, similar thing, like as you mentioned, like in our childhood we have seen that our seniors are having, in the prize distribution ceremony, seniors are having books for different categories, and so many we are junior to them, are saying, and that the same desire happened also in our mind that okay, if we do better, we maybe that will also be a chance we will be getting some prizes. So that is also kind of influence, like in a class, if somebody is doing good, teachers also try to make him showcase that okay, with some prize or something like that, so that everybody should also be like. So this is also kind of desire automatically grown to juniors, or to follow them to be better. So the process is already in our society, right?
Right. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Very good points, and we will see how to resolve this. Very good question. Yeah.
So I think, sir, my intention to not in line with the question, just to answer out something what I understand and what I feel. For example, the desire is not a bad thing. For example, for Yudhishthir, he has also a desire that whatever he is dealing, he is helping his brother. But desire, if you think in different way, that is negative way, that it's the right time, I can negotiate with him for my kingdom, that desire is the wrong thing. I think we should avoid. But the desire of helping something and get my family member back from someone outsider, this desire is the right thinking.
So the fundamental difference between desiring correctly and desiring wrongly is not in the desire itself. In the beginning of the class also we said this. Will come back to the same point. It's a very important point. I'll write these words so that we can carry forward something to future discussions. I'll write in English because all of you may not be able to read this language. I hope I've written the spelling correctly. Are these words clear to everyone? Okay, so now if you see the Pandavas versus Kauravas, we just contrasted them. Now, before going to Vanavas, what did the Pandavas do? Which actually stimulated the Kauravas to send them to Vanavas to do the gambling match. What was the immediately previous thing they did? Do you remember that? What was that? The Rajasuya Yajna, right? And why did the Rajasuya Yajna become a trigger for the gambling match? Why? Tell me. If you recollect the Rajasuya Yajna, because among all the different types of things that a king can do, like we talk about Ashwamedha Yajna, we talk about this, that, Digvijaya, this and that, right? The Kshatriyas do these kind of things. The highest among them is considered the Rajasuya Yajna. The Rajasuya Yajna is considered an achievement for a Kshatriya, for a king. If a king is able to successfully do, because what does it involve to do a Rajasuya? To do a Rajasuya, it requires, just like to become, let's say, the prime minister of the country, what does it require? In simple language, what does it require? It requires enough popularity. It requires other people to think that you are capable of becoming the prime minister. It requires adequate number of other people, not only your wife and your son, but a lot of other important people in the country should be willing to accept that this guy is qualified to be the prime minister. Only then you can become the prime minister. And they should express their support for you. People should vote for your party. Enough number of people in enough number of constituencies should vote for your party, and they should extend their support. They should be willing to campaign for you, talk about you, this and that. And then by doing all that, eventually you become the prime minister. This applies to any country where there is some democratic process going on, right? The Rajasuya Yajna is like that. It's like a democratic process where all the kings in the country, okay, in that time our country was bigger than what it is today. There were so many small kingdoms under one large capital. The capital was in Hastinapura, and they had their influence on several other kings. The kings also were independent in their own sense, like the states. The states also have their independence to a good extent in our country, right? A similar structure. So the Rajasuya requires, many other yajnas or other things don't require that, but the Rajasuya Yajna requires, is specifically designed like that, that all the kings should be willing to say that you are our emperor, you are the Chakravarti, we accept you. We accept you as our Chakravarti, we don't challenge you. We accept, we will pay you tax, we will do this, we will do that. And it's a friendly process. It's not a process of going and conquering the king. It's the king saying that, okay, I accept you as a qualified person to lead us, to give us direction. We accept your supremacy, your sovereignty. We accept your sovereignty. So when that happens, you are able to perform the Rajasuya. So when that is done, you invite all the kings from all the kingdoms. They come, they bring their money with them. They all bring great amount of, gifts. They bring a lot of wealth and they give it to you. They say that because you are our leader or this thing, so we contribute, we donate this much to you, so you can actually guide the kingdom, you can rule the kingdom and so on. Now the Pandavas achieved that. Because of their nature, they could actually, build good relationships with people. And that is why it's important for us to learn these things, because even in the company environment, if a company has to grow well, then we need to know how to build good relationships with so many other outsiders, our stakeholders, like our customers, our suppliers, the government, everything, right? So the Pandavas did that, and they become very popular. The Rajasuya actually makes a king a hero, a big hero. So on the one hand, they got Indraprastha, they got that beautiful palace and everything. And then they did the Rajasuya, they became extremely rich. A huge amount of wealth came to them. And that increased the jealousy of this fellow. This fellow already was wanting to kill them in some way or the other. But on top of that, not only is he not able to kill them, they are becoming more popular. They are becoming more heroic. Okay, now coming back to our question. You see, it's not about the desire to become big. Like in the case of doing the Rajasuya, it's driven by the desire to do something big, right? So that desire is not wrong. But the intention behind the desire, what does it fuel? The desire is coming from where? Is it coming from selfishness or selflessness? Now, the whole thrust of the Indian knowledge system, the IKS, is this: the cultivation of selflessness. It is selflessness that takes us towards our pure self. Our pure self is selfless. So if we want to be really selfish, then we should become selfless. And I say what I meant by the statement was, the discovery of the pure self happens when we are selfless, not when we are selfish. So when a desire is driven by the intention to do good to others, okay, I'll give you, see, this is in our Samskriti. There's a very nice shloka that's taught to children. Anybody who learns, these things, basic things are taught. It's not from the Mahabharata. It's just considered a niti, subhashitam. We say subhashitam, right? It says, "Paropakaraya vahanti nadyah, paropakaraya duhanti gavah, paropakaraya phalanti vrikshaha, paropakarartham idam shariram." How many of you have heard this before? Have you heard this? Paropakaraya vahanti nadyah. The rivers, they flow for others. What do the rivers do? They carry water. But who drinks the water? The river itself does not drink its water. Everybody else drinks the water of the river. So many other living beings, they're living in the water. And so many human beings, they use the water for farming or whatever. But everybody other than the river itself uses its own water. The river does not use its own water. So the river lives for others. Similarly, paropakaraya duhanti gava. The cows, they give milk, but they don't drink their own milk. Cow milk in India, that's for the desi gai. We say desi gai, right? It's called Bos indicus in Latin. That species, the milk of that species is considered to be very nutritious, extremely nutritious. We all know this. As Indians, we all know this, right? Whatever the foreigners say, we know this, that milk is not only tasty to drink, but very nutritious. It gives us a lot of nutrients, and it also gives us the ability to make supplementary products like curd and sweets, ghee, and so many other things, butter. The cows don't take that benefit. They give the benefit to others. The trees, paropakaraya phalanti vrikshaha. The trees, they bear fruits. They're standing in the sun. They bear the rain, everything they bear. Birds come and build nests on them. They tolerate everything, and ultimately they give the fruits, but the fruits are not eaten by the trees, eaten by others. So in the same manner, this body that we have is meant for paropakar. Ultimately, this kind of, there are a lot of shlokas like this, and these shlokas basically point to saying that self-awareness is about this. It's about cultivating selflessness, which means that all desire is good as long as it is executed selflessly. And desire becomes bad only when it is executed selfishly. So desire by itself is neither good nor bad. What is being spoken about in this session with respect to Vishwamitra was because the way in which his desire was executed. He wanted Kamadhenu for purely selfish reasons, and that selfishness drove him to do things which are not appropriate, to break dharma, to try to kill the sage. Correct? So when we are driven by selfishness, we end up doing things which can take us anywhere. which can destroy us. But when we do the same thing, the same desire, like suppose you have a desire to become rich, but you do that, execute the desire with the intention of using it selflessly, using your power in a selfless manner. Selflessness simply means doing something which benefits everybody. Not only benefits you, but benefits everybody. That's the meaning of selflessness. Parartham. Selflessness does not mean that you starve. It means accumulate, but use that accumulation for others' benefit. And also, you also benefit in that process. Enjoy with others. Have happiness with others, not only alone. That is selflessness. I don't know if this answers your question, sir. You started the question. You lost me on the way.
Yeah, because
I spoke for a long time.
So I want to know whether doing that will make me inducing or tempting others to do some to getting benefit of from them.
See, in the course of motivating people to work, your question was about giving incentives.
No.
Should we give
Motivating
incentives?
is different. Desire comes from like they are maybe they are concentrated on their work only.
Yes.
Okay, they are without any disturbance, they are doing their work.
Yeah.
But we are making them making them to desire by giving some offerings.
You are increasing the greed in them. If you're doing that with the intention to increase their greed, then it is wrong. But if you're doing it with the intention to reward them for their work, that because they're also like me, I'm earning so much profit, they should also get a share of my profit.
Okay.
If you're doing it with that intention,
okay,
then it's not wrong.
Understood.
So what is the mentality with which you're giving them money? If you're thinking very slyly that, I'm going to tempt them.
Okay.
I'm going to tempt them and incite them. I know they don't want it, but if I do this, then they will fall into my trap. If you think like that, if that is what is thinking,
okay,
then it comes in the first category, which is wrong. Okay. But if you're thinking that, look, this is what people say Ratan Tata used to think like. He used to think that he's always ready to share his profits, or he's ready to give something that anybody wants. That's what we read now, because people are talking about him a lot now.
Yeah.
So if that is the mentality with which we do something, then it is perfect. The same act of giving money to them. This is my answer, sir.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, sir.
Others, sir, Anupamji. I'll go forward a little bit more. I'll quickly conclude also. We are coming towards the end now. Now, in part B of the case, we already touched upon some aspects of it. You see Vishwamitra going through several rounds of tapasya. Okay, in this slide, I have listed those different rounds. And this is the way in which we analyze a case. Okay, I'm sorry, this mic is yours actually. We break down the case with all the information given in the case into different constituents and organize it in a way that we can comprehend easily. So I've broken it down like this. And you see that he's alternating between success, failure, success, failure. It keeps getting interrupted. He struggles. So this actually brings us to a question of the goal that he is pursuing. Okay, here I plan to give in the next 2 slides before we close a different perspective. I've talked about kama, krodha, lobha, and so on, but now I'm going to give you a different perspective about the way we do our work, the goal that we should pursue. Now, there are 2 important considerations when we have a particular goal in mind. One is, are we pursuing the correct goal? Is this the goal that I ought to pursue? Is this a goal that's correct for me? Okay, when I say correct goal, I don't mean universally correct goal, because I don't believe there is one universally correct goal. Each person, depending on their context, their nature, etc., will have some goals correct for them. That could be different from the goals for somebody else. Once you decide what the goal is for you, the correct goal is for you, then executing that goal or going towards that goal in the correct manner Now, if you reflect back on the part B of the case and think of how Vishwamitra went towards that goal, the very first thing we can do is to question the goal itself. He made up his mind in the beginning of case B. He says, I want to become a Brahma Rishi. Okay, at the end of case A. Because Vasishta is a Brahma Rishi, I will also become a Brahma Rishi. Because Vasishta has Brahma Tejas, he has the strength of Brahma, I also will develop that strength. If a small child says that, it's okay. Just like a small child says that that child has got a particular type of pen, I want the same pen. Even if you give a better pen to the child, it will not take it. I want the same pen that that child also has. Correct? When a child behaves like this, you don't mind because it's a child. But when a grown-up behaves like this, what would you call it? Vishwamitra is not knowledgeable about what it is to be a Brahma Rishi. He has not been educated like that. His elders have not told him you should become a Brahma Rishi. It is nowhere. It is not in the agenda. It's not on the radar screen of a Kshatriya. A Kshatriya, a king, has got certain responsibilities. Just like each one of us today, we work in our companies, our organizations. We have certain positions. We all hold certain positions. We have certain responsibilities. That is our radar screen. What is given to us by virtue of our commitments and so on, right? Now, if we go and think that the other person's responsibility should be something that I should take on, I should do. Does it make any sense? That's what he's doing. So the first question is that goal of becoming a Brahma Rishi, is that itself an intelligent goal? And my answer to that would be no, it's not. He's a king, he's a Kshatriya. And he's supposed to rule his kingdom by the principles of Dharma. That's what he's supposed to do. Just like each one of us in our own jobs is supposed to execute that responsibility in the best possible way we can. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay. So can I give you a summary of that? Okay. The summary was what I showed actually. I'll go through it in a few minutes. You don't mind me exceeding by a few minutes, 5-10 minutes, we'll close. Okay, we had a longer break also. So I believe that all of you could not read part B because it's long. I understand it's quite long and you were traveling also. And it was my mistake. I sent it late. I should have sent it about a week back. But now this is a summary of part B. In part B, what happens? Because at the end of part A, you will see that he has now made up his mind, I'm going to become a Brahma Rishi. A Brahma Rishi means a certain type of sage, like Vasishta is. Vasishta is a Brahma Rishi, means he has already discovered his pure self. Okay? He's a person who is already in the stage of the pure self. He's completely selfless, he's very peaceful, very calm, he has no fear. You can see all those properties when you read about in part A itself, it becomes clear, right? Now, this guy, he realizes, because he tries to kill him, nothing happens. Then he realizes that he's got a strength in him, which I don't have. Now I should develop that strength. And I should do it by becoming a Brahma Rishi. He decides that. So in part B of the case, what is described is what he goes through to become that. Okay, so to give you an overview, in the beginning, he does a tapasya and he doesn't manage to become a Brahma Rishi. He develops some amount of strength in him. He is called a Raja Rishi. He becomes what is called a Raja Rishi. Then he begins his tapasya once more. Okay, so that's one good thing about him. A positive about him is that he doesn't give up. Okay, and that's a good quality to have. Once you decide upon a goal, then you do whatever you can to reach that goal. You don't give up. So he doesn't give up. So second round he starts, but in the second round, you can read this elaborately later, but to tell you very briefly, another king called Trishanku appears there. And that guy, Trishanku, has got a crazy desire. He's absolutely crazy. He wants to go to heaven, Swarga, in this body, the human body. Everybody tells him that it's not possible, but he doesn't listen to them. It's like saying, I want to go to the moon with my car. I have an I-10, I want to drive the I-10 and go to the moon. Anybody will say, okay. To go to the moon, I have to do so many things, right? It's possible to go to the moon, but I have to do so many things for that, and I have to use a rocket for going there. I can't go with my I-10 there. But Trishanku wants to go with the I-10 to the moon. So he comes to Vishwamitra. Finally, after so many people tell him no, 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 he gets cursed, he becomes a Chandala and all that. Finally comes to Vishwamitra. And Vishwamitra, his ego, see, this is where Ahankara, ego comes, and it comes in the way of his clear thinking also. So out of ego, he says, because the others refused for you, now I will show you that it can be done. He tries to do it, he fails. Okay, to make a long story short, he fails. Obviously, it will fail because it's not possible. So what happens eventually is that he decides that, I have been disturbed. So he goes to a different region altogether. He leaves that region, he goes to a different place and starts a new tapasya. In that new tapasya, again, one more disturbance comes. Somebody else comes and asks for his help, and he manages to help him. In the process, he gets angry, he curses, he kills his own sons. A lot of things happen. And he helps that guy, but his tapasya gets broken. Then he again starts one more tapasya, the fourth round. In the fourth round, he manages to complete that round and he becomes a rishi. He gets one level higher. Okay. So then he says, I still have not achieved my goal. So he starts the fifth round of tapasya. And in the fifth round, by then the devas are all watching him and they don't want him to succeed because they are afraid that if he succeeds, then he can do some other harm because of his ego. So they're trying to somehow break his tapasya. So they send one woman, a woman in Swarga called Menaka. She's very beautiful and all that. So they send her there, and she manages to seduce him. She seduces him, he falls for her, and they live with each other. For 10 years they live. And through her, that's not in the Ramayana, but in the Mahabharata it's given that they have a child called Shakuntala, right? And so that's a different story. So eventually he realizes that because of this woman in my life, my tapasya has gone. I started out by becoming something. So he comes back. And we should give him the credit for that. So she goes away. And he then does one more round of tapasya. That's the sixth round. And he successfully completes that round. Again, he doesn't become a Brahma Rishi. He's very disappointed. He becomes a Maharishi. And he starts the seventh round. In the seventh round, again, the Devas send one more woman, and that is Ramba. Okay, but then when she comes in front of him, he knows that this is similar to Menaka. She has come with the same intention. So the moment he sees her, he understands the ploy and he becomes angry. He gets angry and he curses her very, very badly. He says that you will become a stone for 10,000 years something, and he curses her. So she becomes a stone, but he realizes that again my tapasya has gone because I cursed her. See, what happens when we lose our temper, especially when you're doing a tapasya like this, anger destroys everything. That's one important lesson from here. When we get angry, we lose our intelligence and we do an action which destroys what we have done in the past. So each time he becomes angry, he has lost all the strength he has gained. He has come back to zero. It's like the snakes and ladders. You played snakes and ladders. So you roll the dice and you reach the top. You're somewhere in the 90s and suddenly it falls in the mouth of a snake. And then you're back to some single digit number, right? That's what happens. So the moment you become angry, we go back to single digit. So he goes back and then he realizes that he says that I have done now tapasya so many times, but I still haven't become a Brahma Rishi because each time I became angry. He makes up his mind there. This is the turning point in the story. This is the final turning point. He makes up his mind that now onwards, regardless of what happens, I will not allow anger to enter me. I will not allow anger to enter me. And he makes up his mind and he starts his 8th round of tapasya. He completes that full round, and at that point, Indra comes and tests him. Let's see if this guy becomes angry or not. He has made up his mind not to get angry. Let me provoke him. He goes and provokes him. What he does is he comes at a point when he is about to eat food. So for a very long time, imagine you have held a fast. Okay, all of us know fasting, right? Upavas karte hain hum log. So after fasting for a long time, you're about to have a nice meal. And somebody comes and takes away that meal and tells you that no, you can't have anything. Then how will you feel? right? Naturally, it's natural to become angry, right? Anybody will become angry. But he remembers the commitment he has made to himself. So he doesn't become angry. So Indra comes and takes away his food. He says, basically, he comes in the form of a Brahmana. He comes in the form of a very poor man. He says, look, I have not eaten for many days. I'm starving. Please help me. I'm very weak. So this guy readily gives away the food. He says, okay, please take it. Please take all my food. And then he says, okay, if that is destiny, I accept it. And so that is his first success in the whole thing. He doesn't become angry. So in that state of mind, he begins the next tapasya, and that's the final round. And that tapasya, because he has not got angry, the previous cycle of tapasya, that strength he has accumulated, carries forward to him. All the other previous tapasyas, he has lost it. But now he carries forward that strength. And he carries forward the strength and he becomes very strong. He becomes so strong that because of his tapasya, smoke starts coming out of his head. The body becomes so hot that smoke starts coming out of his head and it disturbs everybody. So at that time, they decide to give him that position as Brahma Rishi. So Lord Brahma comes and says that, okay, now you are a Brahma Rishi, I'm happy with it. But at that point too, you see how the ego doesn't leave us. You see, even when we have actually managed to calm our mind so much, the ego is the last thing, actually. To really realize our pure self, we have to give up that ego too, but he is not able to do that. So he says that, okay, I thank you for giving me the title of Brahma Rishi, but I want Vasishta to tell me. If he tells me that I am Brahma Rishi, then I will accept it. He wants him to tell. So the Devas say, okay, that's a small thing for us. So they go to him. He says, fine, no problem. So he comes and he shakes his hand. He says, okay, now you are a Brahma Rishi. Then they embrace each other. It's a happy ending, right? So this is the story. Are you all with me? The simple story I've told you in a summary. You can read the full story later. And so what I was trying to point out here is that this very goal that he starts out with, even though he achieves this goal in the end, we should remember that taking an inappropriate goal itself is a mistake in the first place. And after taking up a goal, after deciding that this goal is appropriate, executing it correctly is the next challenge. And we see in Vishwamitra's case that struggle to execute it properly too, simply because he is caught in that cycle of kama, krodha and lobha. He is not able to come out of it. So even when a disturbance comes, you will see, those of you who have read the story will be able to relate with it right now, but others can see it later, that even for a small thing, he gets very angry. In one instance, he curses the sons of Vasishta. Vasishta's sons are cursed very badly and they fall into a bad condition. In the second instance, it is his own sons. He has 4 sons and they refuse to do something that he asks them to do. And if you read that, you will see that what they refused to do was not unreasonable. They were very reasonable in what they said. But he becomes so angry with them that he curses them too. He kills them. So for small things, he gets very angry, which means he does not execute the process of achieving the goal also properly. So it's not only about choosing the correct goal, but executing the process of going towards the goal in the correct manner, by following the appropriate discipline, right? It takes him 7 rounds of tapasya to realize that I should not do this. Only then he corrects himself. Only the last 2 rounds he does correctly, right? So this is a big learning for us from this particular case. And so the Gita says that to prevent a situation like Vishwamitra's situation, there are 2 shlokas. I will be concluding with this. This is called Swabhav, because we said that currently we have a particular nature which is called Swabhav. That's the current self. Our goal is the pure self. We are not pure right now. We are going towards that. So therefore, duties have been given to us. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat swanushtitat. Swadharme nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. It's a very famous shloka in the Gita. And there's one more shloka also in the Gita, very similar to this. So there's a repetition. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmaha swanushtitaat swabhava niyatam karma kurvan napnoti kilbisham. What do these two shlokas mean? They are essentially saying the same thing. They're saying that it is better to do one's prescribed duty, even with defects, than to do another person's duty perfectly. Okay? So I've been given a responsibility. For example, in my case, my personal case, I'm now in charge of the doctoral program in XLRI, the PhD program. It's called FPM here in XLRI. FPM and EFPM, we have two doctoral programs. So I'm called the chairperson of the FPM and EFPM programs. So my responsibility involves interacting with the doctoral students, with their academic, the courses that they do, ensuring that all the courses are conducted in a timely manner, ensuring that all the grades are submitted by the professors, clarifying the doubts of the students whenever students come about some doubt regarding the process. So I have to attend to a number of different issues connected to that responsibility, and that has been given to me. The institute felt that I should do this for it's a rotational thing. So for a few years, I'm supposed to do this, and then somebody else will take over from me. Okay, now, if I start saying that, I don't like this so much, I should do the work of the person who's looking after placement, because placement is an important activity for the institute. So let me go get involved in the placement activities. I should go and make comments on how they are doing it. I should, make decisions there. Will anybody like it? Nobody will like it. It will become a nuisance. So when I try to do, even if I am doing that work better than the work that's been given to me, the Gita says, no, don't do it. Do the work given to you, meant for you. What is in accordance with your swabhav. See, eventually what happens as we work in life, we fit into certain roles naturally. Our superiors, our peers, they realize that we are good for something, and that shapes our career. Of course, we can always try to become good at something else. There's no harm in learning new things and becoming eligible for better roles. But we should do it in a manner that doesn't destroy us, like the way Vishwamitra is doing. Burns himself out, kills other people, right? Harms other people. Do it in a way that is sangata, means that which is harmonious with the way other people are living, without stepping on somebody else's shoes, without causing a disturbance to anybody. Learn new things, become better. That's always a part of learning, and the Gita encourages that. But whatever responsibility ultimately we are given, execute that responsibility perfectly. So Vishwamitra is a king, and his responsibility is to rule the kingdom properly, and he was doing that until the point he saw Kamadhenu. He was doing just that, right? But at that point, his desire overcame him, and he forgot that. And so he went into a responsibility. He hands over his kingdom to his son. There's one son left. He gives it to that son, and he goes away. And he tries to become a Brahma Rishi, which he is not supposed to do. Right? So the whole case illustrates how a person goes against his own swabhav, and because of going against his own swabhav, he has such a difficult time in discovering his self. But the journey to self-awareness is actually a journey of doing our own duty as well as we can, with selflessness guiding us, with pararthatva guiding us, not swarthatva. So as long as we focus on our own job, respective job, in a selfless manner, we become self-aware, we develop self-awareness. So finally, the turning point in the story, Vishwamitra attains success after overcoming that particular weakness which is bothering him. It takes him so much time to realize that. So with this, I will conclude the session, and I'll be happy to also continue discussing with you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you very much. We can discuss more after the session. Those of you who wish to leave can leave. Before you leave, there's one little thing I can tell you, that I because of my interest in this subject in the Indian knowledge systems and the Gita, the Mahabharata, and so on, I also take a class on Sunday for my students here. It's completely optional. Those who want to take the class can come. And I have a mailing list. If any of you want to be a part of that, you can let me know. And what I do is after the class, I record the class, every class I take, and I post it on a particular channel on YouTube. I've maintained a channel for the benefit of students who want to see it later. So right now we are studying the Gita. We're going through different concepts in the Gita one by one, shloka by shloka we are going. And the last class was yesterday, Sunday. So we have a class every Sunday. And if you wish to either go and see my channel, or if you wish to be on the mailing list for my channel, you can let me know. Okay, how to communicate with me? My email ID. This is my email ID. akm@xlri.ac.in. And the handle for this channel is youtube.com /@Geeta Madhu. youtube.com @Geeta Madhu. So you can visit the channel if you wish to, and also connect with me if you wish to connect with me in the future. Thank you very much. I hope that there was useful learning for you. Thank you. Thank you.